with my family. And it wasn't like that when I first moved into Oxford House when I was 28. But every year, I get the support and the love from my brother, Peter. Peter, raise your hand. He is also a man in long-term recovery. And we get to share some of this journey together. Although he never lived in an Oxford House, he is very supportive. So I hope that along your journey, you've been able to reunite with your family, not just children, but with your other parts of your family, your siblings, your parents. It's a very beautiful thing, and Oxford House definitely plays a role in that. So as we finish up, I could only think to myself as I was going down the stairs, okay, Paul. Pretty funny. Let's get 1,500 people out of the room in 10 minutes and back in. So I think he would be proud that we made that happen. So thank you, guys. Don't really know what happened, but if by chance you're doing something somewhere like vaping that you're not supposed to, could you please stop so we can actually have the convention? So, all right, it looks like the last few groups are rolling in. It is a little warm in here. Obviously, the air was off. It's probably coming back on. So we're going to get going this afternoon. We didn't get to finish a few things this morning, and one of them was a few more words. If you guys can settle down a little bit, we can get going, because I know you can walk quietly into the room and sit in the chair, right? Yeah. So, okay, thank you. I still hear people talking over in the right corner. Shh. Thanks, you guys. So I'm going to bring up somebody who got to work with Paul Malloy very early on to share a little bit, and Mark Spence, who most of you have seen on the 60 Minutes tape. He's going to share for a few minutes. Then Marty Walker, hopefully, will be back in the room, and he's going to share for a few minutes. We have a few videos we want to watch, and then we're going to be educated, enlightened, and inspired by Dr. Gitlow. So, Mark, you want to start us off?
My name is Mark, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic and addict. I'm one of those druggies Paul talked about, right? I smoke crack. And my clean date is December the 10th, 1988. So I only have 3 minutes to speak, and been knowing Paul for 33 years. And first of all, I just want to say, Paul, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Paul Malloy helped change the trajectory of my life. I went to treatment for 2 weeks, moved into an Oxford house where people went to meetings. And I decided to do what they did because I had nowhere to live. And they stayed off of drugs and alcohol. And then Paul actually opened up a house 6 months later. It was on the Gold Coast in Washington, D.C., and had me and a couple other guys going to start that house. And I got a feel for starting at Oxford House. And then I got a chance to meet him. The word came out through all the Oxford houses that they were hiring for outreach workers at the time. And basically looking for somebody who's not in a relationship, don't have a job, and ain't got nothing else to do. And I said, that's for me. So I met Paul Malloy, John Paul Malloy, and he was a character. He's a storyteller, you know, and he was telling this story about, drinking that Canadian Club. He made it sound so good that I wanted some Canadian Club. But then I got a chance to share about my crack, and he's like, I don't want no part of that. Right? And I just like to say to Jane and the family, because this is it's a family business, right? We're in the business of saving lives and family, right? And so Jane and family, thank you for sharing Paul with us. You know, for me and Kathleen and James and some of us that's been around for a while, this is incredible. What we see is incredible. I lived in house number 8, Oxford house number 8, right? And so this is absolutely incredible. I don't have a lot of time because I have to save time for Marty because he's really good at this. But I just want to leave y'all with this. In 1935, organization AA was started by a guy named Bill W. That I practiced those principles. In 1953, organization called Narcotics Anonymous was started by a guy named Jimmy K. Right? And I'm an NA dude because I smoke crack, right? But I did drink, but I drank high shelf stuff. But that's one of those not yets. And in 1975, right, those group of men in Silver Spring, Maryland, with Paul Malloy spearheading it all, started Oxford House. And I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Let's have a round of applause for John back there, Kansas. You know, I did not sleep last night. I was trying to put to words how many people here in this room, let's see a show of hands, how many people here have never met Paul Malloy? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. And if you do the math, eventually that's going to be every hand in this room. That's just the way it's going to go, you know. So I just, you know, I spent the evening in gratitude that I moved into Oxford House and I was of the genre that we got to run around with Paul Malloy. You know, we got to hear him speak at all the conventions. We got to hear his stories. All the time. The boy could tell stories. And one of my favorite stories of his, I mean, he's got a lot. And we heard him over and over and over. But my favorite story of his is, I think the guy's name was Charlie. And their house was hurting financially. And they said, why don't we go down to the bar and get Charlie and convince him to move in and pay his move-in fee, and he'll relapse and we can keep making money on his deposit. So they did. Charlie said, man, that sounds like a great idea. And he moved him in, he paid his deposit, paid his first week, and come to find out, Charlie was a big disappointment because he stayed sober. That's my favorite story of his. So I'm looking at a whole room full of Charlies right here, right? I'm glad they didn't play the video yet. So I had my little crying going on, you know. I wanted to tell you guys real quick what I learned from Paul. And you guys are here to learn that too. And our job as a family now is to keep it moving, right? We don't change it. We just keep these. I think there's 7 of them. And these were really critical because Paul was my supervisor for 2 or 3 years. And his main thing was let's get some damn houses going. That was all he talked about. Opening houses, even when you don't want to, it's the best way to create motivation and unity amongst the existing houses. By opening houses, by getting everybody together and say, we're going to open a house. You share a room. Hey, you want your pick of the rooms over here? So it just, to keep it moving, we talked about this as staff. We said, we're on a train moving forward, and we're laying the tracks as we're moving. I thought that was pretty powerful. So we got to keep laying tracks because we're moving. I mean, look at this energy here. It's not going anywhere. It's moving. Another thing is no tyrants, no bosses in Oxford House. Everybody is an equal. You all pay the same amount of money. You have the same vote. The democratic process is our goal, and it's to be protected. No house manager, no senior member. I think they're going to talk about that tomorrow. Another thing is don't be in a hurry to move out. You know, there's no shame in living in Oxford House. Oxford House is designed to stay as long as you freaking want and to get your life together. I mean, you can stay the rest of your life if you want, literally. There's no time limit. There is no time limit. But we're going to start looking. Why haven't you opened it? You've been in the house for 40 years and you ain't opened a house yet? What's up, man? You know what I'm saying? Oxford House is designed for everyone. Everyone. It's something about diversity. Oh, yeah, diversify your house. A good house, a healthy house. And I learned this from Paul and James. A good house has old people in it, young people in it, black people in it, Asian people in it, Indian people in it, blind people in it, sick people in it, you know, because we're a family, and that's what a family has. It's not just people that look like us. They're the same age as us, you know, with a college degree like I want, you know. So if the other thing I learned from Paul is if you could just stay long enough to get comfortable enough in sobriety, your odds of relapse are nil, zero. Just get comfortable. Just stay long enough. Because with us, we always want to migrate back to what we're comfortable in. And for us to finally be able to sit our asses here in Seattle, we're comfortable. Well, most of us are probably, there's probably some people in there like, what in the hell did I move into? What is this? And it's for you too, you know, get comfortable. Just don't use. And pretty soon sobriety, once you become comfortable, you don't, and you start looking back and it's like, why in the hell did I live like that? You know? And that's what Oxford House, that's the gift that Oxford House gave me, you know, because I tried to do it on my own and go to a meeting, and then after the meeting I'd be using, and I'd go to a meeting the next day. But once I moved into Oxford House and I surrounded myself with you guys, you winners, you Charlies, because I was a black sheep of the family. I think we all were, you know. That's where Oxford, we shine. We're made for a black sheep of the family. Look at all of you, you know. So that's awesome. It just, I can't. So this is why I stayed up all night trying to put this into words, because there is so much stuff, so much positivity. That's why you know that this is a God thing. You know it's a God thing. Look how far we've come. Look at the adversity that we've hurdled. You know, thank you, Steve. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Jason. Anybody that has helped create a house, stepped up in a chapter, anybody that's done any service, please stand up. Let's have a round of applause for all of these people, every one of them. Let's lay some more tracks. Let's keep this baby moving. Yeah, baby. And we're just getting warmed up. We're just getting warmed up. It is a new day. It's a new day. Paul's not a big huggy guy. Paul's not, you know, but I'm going to read a little poem that I found for him. This is his day. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Don't think of him as gone away. His journey has just begun. Life holds so many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrows and the tears in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days or years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today. Sorry, hang on. We didn't want this day to happen. We knew it was going to happen, but it shouldn't have happened. You know? Think how he must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched, for nothing loved is ever lost. And he was loved so much. Thank you for letting me share.
The first, okay. All right. The first video we're going to watch is a video with some folks that really thought a lot of Paul and worked with Paul professionally and personally, followed by none other than Paul Malloy talking about Oxford House. And I think that is Jackson back in the room? Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure. James, is there, before we play the first reel, is there anything you'd like to say? You want us to go ahead and play the reel? Mr. McLean just got back in here, so we're going to allow him to share with us a little bit before we play the videos.
Hi, group. I'm James McLean. I'm a person in long-term recovery. Region. I haven't had a drink or drug since May 23rd, 1982. I had the distinction of traveling with Paul about 25 years. And I tell you something, I grew up, I learned, I got so informed, and I learned what it was like to really, really love somebody that you just met. Paul was that kind of a guy. And in our travels, I learned something about Paul that's really resonant there. Paul was a visionary. So on our trips, he would talk about stuff. 10,000 houses, a commission in a 5-star hotel. I'm saying, Paul, come on, man. You know? Damn, we can't do that. Who's going to let a bunch of drunks and drunkards come into their hotel? Man, we can't do that. He'd say, James, they don't know who we are. We're going to show them. And I watched him, and we had difficult conversations with different places. We had a meeting one time when there was a big lie told about a member of a house who was allegedly had an affair with a young kid in the house. And so this mother went around telling the neighborhood that we were a bunch of pedophiles and we was going to do this, we were going to do that. And we had to come out of this house, and they had this great big meeting in the library, and the mayor was there, and the chief of police was there, the senator, the congressman, the newspaper was there, and everybody was there, and they was hollering, oh, get him out of there, get him out of there. And Paul sat up front with his legs crossed. So the man said, Mr. Malloy, why don't you just move? He says, we are not going anywhere. And that's the way he was. His love for the model, his love for the system, oversaw a lot of things because there were a lot of times when we were together and I would be like, Paul, let's get out of here. We got to go, you know. And he just was steadfast because he believed in us. He believed that we could show the world what recovery was about because the world did not know. He constantly said that to all of us. They don't know us. They don't know that we can be as well as not better than they are when we're not in control. That we are different people when we're not using. And the whole you proves that. So Paul, I know you're listening because you're always going to find a way to find what's going on. I know you're up there looking at us. You made us go outside and wait a while so you could get your stuff together. I know you did that. I know you did that, Paul. But let me tell you something. Your vision was for 10,000 houses. Your vision was to do all these wonderful things at Oxford House. And I thought about it yesterday when I saw 400 and something women into the women's conference. I said, Paul, you know what? You never thought that was going to happen. I'm serious. But you're up there watching us, Paul, and we are going to show you that your vision caught on because you had a way of pulling us along with you. You showed us your vision, and we got it, Paul. And guess what? We're going to make it possible. Thanks for letting me share.
Paul Molloy could best be described as a force of nature. No matter his age or health, he was all Oxford House all the time. Paul gave me the marvelous opportunity to directly interact with thousands of individuals to whom I've dedicated my career, something I'll always be thankful for. He opened my eyes to the stigma faced by those in early and even later recovery, stigma which goes far beyond occasional hostility at the pharmacy window, and which extends into every aspect of the recovered individual's life. Now, it would be trite to say that Paul cannot be replaced, but it will be an uphill battle on which we will all work together to carry out his ongoing legacy.
What Paul did was move recovery into the world. He, in essence, said, recovery is something that must be embedded in the community. And he set about expanding recovery spaces in communities across the United States. What then followed on the heels of Oxford Houses and other recovery residences were recovery high schools and collegiate recovery programs, recovery community centers, religious recovery ministries, recovery cafes, recovery sports and adventure venues, art, drama, and music venues, and on and on. Paul challenged all of us to create the spaces in local communities in which recovery could flourish. For that, we say to Paul, rest in peace, our brother. A grateful recovery nation thanks you for your service and forever changing the world of recovery support.
In addition to these professional, remarkable accomplishments, Paul also developed many, many friendships over the decades, and I am privileged to count myself among the people who consider Paul one of their professional friends. Both his powerful ideas that he represented and the power of his friendships will live on. I will miss Paul, and I'm extremely grateful for what he brought to our field in terms of the lives that he has helped turn around and save over these last decades, and also for my personal friendship with him. I will miss both of these.
What impact did Paul Molloy have on my life? In a word, gratitude. My brother Matt lived in an Oxford House for 7 years, and it saved his life. My beloved wife, Judy, was an enthusiastic, longtime board member of Oxford House. I've always stood awe of Paul's ability to write important laws. But the crown jewel was Oxford House because it was built on a very simple concept: gratitude.
You know, when he made a decision, he stuck to it. And he was always positive about it, despite seemingly things not going well. You know, he was like, nope, we're going to make it. And we did. And look where we're at now. You know, I saw Oxford House go from 12 houses to, you know, more than we can count now. And he last told me not long ago that when we get to 10,000, we'll be self-supporting by way of the house's contributions. You know, and I know that's going to happen one day.
One of my favorite memories of Paul takes place at the convention. In between the breakout sessions, when people are in the hallways, people are laughing and joking and taking pictures and making memories, Paul, right there amongst us all, he starts the 2-minute warning, letting us know that it's time to get back into the rooms. I'll miss that.
My favorite moment of Paul was seeing him in action at the World Convention. For the very first time, it clicked for me how much of an impact he had on so many people, helping them on a pathway to recovery. It was meaningful and moving to me to see the love in the room.
Just so honored that I've been able to be a part of just the vision, you know, Paul, the visionary, just things happening in the world and how far we've grown under Paul's leadership. So I am just so thankful. He will truly be missed. He's been like so many things in my life, you know, the father, the brother, the confidant, the mentor.
For me, Paul's faith in you today and our American democracy has been the spirit of Oxford House, a democratically self-run, self-sustaining, drug-free home. Starting from the first Oxford House in Silver Spring to over 3,000 houses today, we hope to achieve your goal for over 70,000 houses, and we're on our way. Your spirit and legacy lives on in every Oxford House resident, current and past, who have changed their lives by the chance you provided through Oxford House. Thank you.
We have to remember that Paul Malloy was a very prominent lawyer in D.C., and he gave up that career to continue building Oxford Houses. Not for him and the men that opened the house with him, but for all of us. It's an incredible thing, an incredible vision that he had, and I am eternally grateful. His vision has saved so many lives, and we are all so grateful for him. I think about him every day, and I miss him. He was from Vermont, so he wasn't a huggy, personable person, but I know that when something hit his heart, you could feel it, you could see it, and his heart was 100% Oxford House.
Paul was the consummate collaborator, encouraging us to pursue NIH funding to support basic research. When after years of submitting grants to evaluate Oxford Houses, we were informed that only a randomized study would be eligible for consideration, I never thought that would be possible, as each house decides who will be accepted as a member. Paul came to the rescue and worked with us to get up the logistics for doing a randomized study, which ultimately allowed us to secure NIH funding for this research. This is one example, and there are many, where Paul was a model of how a social innovator can work collaboratively with academics for pursuing knowledge regarding social innovation that can make a difference. Thank you, Paul. You did make a difference.
Paul's gift is a unique gift to the world. Ours is to treasure and extend the Oxford House vision to reach ever more suffering addicts and to sustain them in early recovery when they are especially vulnerable. Paul lives with us, in our missions. We are greatly blessed by Paul and his noble life's work. I treasure the opportunity I had to know and to learn from Paul Malloy. Thank God for Paul Malloy, for his vision and for his life's work making it a reality.
His optimism. Paul could see the bright side of anything, and he did. But it shone when he talked about Oxford House. Paul was optimistic about his future, about the future of Oxford House, and about the future of all of us who work in Oxford House. Paul believed in what he was doing, and he believed that he saw and could prove that it worked. He was proud. He was a proud person. Paul was proud of himself. He'd overcome alcoholism. His family had broken up. He put the pieces back together, and he overcame the alcoholism challenge and went on to become the leading light, the forceful person behind developing Oxford House as we know it today. He had a lot to be proud of, and he was unabashedly proud of himself, and he should have been. He had a great believer that people should be individually responsible, and that was the key to sobriety and optimism for the future. It's a success story in every sense of the word. I'm very pleased I was allowed to be a small part of it. Paul, which is Dizzy Dean said, it ain't bragging if you can do it. Paul did it, and I'm so pleased I could watch it.
In addition to the leadership skills that I had seen in Paul, it gave me a sense of the energy, the devotion to Oxford House he had, the stamina, and the fact that Paul was a visionary. It was right in front of him. Paul was a visionary. He could see that this little thing that we created was something much bigger than any of us, any others of us could have sensed. You know, I knew I was going to do some fishing in my retirement, but I also had going to have a lot of time on my hands. And this has given me a purpose, an ability to give back, to be grateful for what Oxford House had done for me many years ago, to meet and work with incredible people. And it's rekindled in me a real sense of purpose. And I feel very grateful to Paul, and I'm so happy that I was able to take him out to lunch one day and tell him just how much I appreciate what he has done for me at this time in my life. I'll tell you now, Paul, I love you. And I thank you. And I miss you.
My name is Paul Malloy, and I'm an alcoholic. Of course, I say to all my friends who had used heroin or opioids, if you had used Canadian Club in the beginning, you wouldn't have done that, because you would have thought you were in heaven and had gone no further. One of the things that we're lucky is that we landed in an Oxford House. My luck is particularly great because this person, Jane, that I referred to, as you all know, had me committed to a nut house in 1975. And as a result of committing me to the nut house and divorcing me, no less, I ended up on the streets of D.C., and from the streets ended up in the county-run halfway house, and thank God the county decided to close the halfway house, because when they did, that became the first Oxford House. In this business of this first Oxford House, we couldn't afford to run it like a halfway house. The halfway house in 1975 cost $114,000 to run, and the reason it cost $114,000 to run is that they hired a cook, they hired a house manager, and they hired a counselor. We couldn't hire anybody. We didn't have the money, quite apart from the fact that we were all so cheap. to give the other bastards I was living with the satisfaction. I had lucked into a job while in the halfway house, and so I said to my fellow roommates, don't worry, I'll pay a whole lot. And they said, that's what makes us worry. You're already trying to be big boss. If we let you pay more than us, you're going to be impossible to live with. And so from the beginning, within Oxford House was a notion that everybody pay an equal share. And then they vote on whether or not to spend $12.80 to get charcoal in order to have a picnic next Saturday and invite a couple of other houses. And they vote, and Charlie doesn't vote. They say, Charlie, you gotta vote. Are you in favor of us spending $12.80 or not? And Charlie votes, reluctantly. And it goes on this way for a month or two, and then there's a vacancy in the house. And Charlie is asked whether or not we vote yes for this candidate. And as a matter of fact, Charlie's life may even be complicated because there's 3 people trying to get in to take the same room. Which one do we vote in? And Charlie finally votes for one guy. The guy gets in. Now Charlie is postponing taking another drink or using drugs, not only because he doesn't want to find another place to live, but because he wants to set a good example for the newcomer. And it goes on and on and on like that, week after week, month after month. And I'll tell you, this damn sobriety stuff is habit for me. And I'm sure that all of us scratch our heads and say, what the hell is a controller? I mean, I created that job 43 years ago, and I still don't know what the hell a controller is. I actually envisioned Whit Holden, who was the biggest guy at the time, as being the controller, and Whit says, what do I do? And I said, if somebody doesn't pay their equal share of expenses, on time, beat the shit out of them. Came to us and he said, you know, 80% of the folks who moved into Oxford House stayed clean and sober. And Whit and I and John O'Neill and the other folks in the early Oxford houses said, my God, what are we doing wrong? We're losing 20%. Explained to us, no, what we were doing was exceptional. Most places would be happy if 20% stayed clean and sober. Here was some system, some way, some scheme that ended up with 80% of the folks staying clean and sober. But it is only through Oxford House that we have figured out a way to live together for as long as we need to, so that we become comfortable enough in sobriety to stay clean and sober forever. So we become comfortable enough in sobriety to enjoy life rather than dread life. And Whit and I and everybody else in those early houses said, unless we can figure out how to have fun and make more fun, and by being clean and sober, we're going to go back to drinking or using drugs. And that happens right across the country. James and I were down in Wichita. What was it, about the 6th convention we had? I remember the poster was this girl running along the little brick road, and we were in Kansas. Of course, I also remember that there was a hotel there, and suddenly the tornado warning came. And the hotel says, get to your bathrooms, a tornado's coming. Everybody from Oxford House, of course, went out front to watch the tornado. So there are things that do not change even though we don't drink and use drugs. That Oxford House follows a model of being a very functional family. A family that cares about each other, a family that helps each other. This is how Oxford House really can expand like crazy. If some of you now living in houses will say, hey, why don't a few of us move and rent another house, we suddenly double the number of houses. If every house did that today, instead of 2,200 and 14 houses, we would have 4,428 houses. Each of you now living in a house, even if you only have lived there for 3 weeks or a month or 2 months, start thinking about, how can I help spread this idea? How can we rent another house? And there's probably all kinds of ways that we can do that Kathleen and I have never thought about. Now, some might say, why do we want to expand? For those of us in Oxford House now, we're all set. We've got a place to live. We've got the support we need. We've got the chance to practice this disciplined participatory democracy that makes each house work. We've got a chance to feel good when the group is able to pay the rent that month, when we're able to pay the cable bill that's got all those fancy channels on it. That makes us feel good. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it will even make you feel better if you can provide that opportunity for other folks. Our family is a large one. It gets bigger and bigger each year. We are bound to have some tragedies, but we know that those tragedies will become fewer and farther apart to the extent that we make sure each house functions the way it's supposed to. That Oxford House follows a model of being a very functional family. A family that cares about each other, a family that helps each other. We're the folks that are going to turn our lives around because each day, each of you are doing it. We are also the folks who are going to make a huge difference when it comes to how this country deals with drunks, druggies, and crazies. And you don't even have to use those terms. You can be politically correct if you want. But it seems to me that drunks, druggies, and crazies explain who we are very well. I think too often those of us in recovery forget about the fact that the treatment for alcoholism and drug addiction is really a fourfold process. First, there's intervention. Then there's physical detoxification. And then there's treatment, which is really only education and motivation of us to do something about the way we're living. And then there's long-term recovery. And I know there are some houses here, I'm sure, who have converted the little old lady next door who bitched about Oxford House moving in by mowing her lawn for free. If you can't con a little old woman next door, you're not a real drunk or druggie. As Irish Catholics, we prided ourselves on becoming alcoholic every chance we got. And Dennis Glenn, in 1988, had 25 years of sobriety. And as a sober, recovering alcoholic in the FBI, Dennis Glenn had inherited the job of helping other folks who had booze problems in the southeast part of the United States who worked for the FBI. And so I called Dennis and I said, here's the problem. In Cozy, he goes out to rent a house. He goes to the house and they say, no, it's not for rent. Dennis says, where's Nkosi staying? I said, Nkosi's staying at the Travel Lodge down there. He said, give me his number. I gave him his number. Dennis called Nkosi and said, Nkosi, did you look at any houses this morning? He said, yeah, I looked at the house on Harrison Street. Dennis says, I'll pick you up. Be on the corner. Dennis picked Nkosi up. They went to the house on Harrison Street. Dennis knocked on the door and said, my name is Dennis Glenn. I'm from the FBI. We're here to rent your house. And that's how we got the first house in Kansas City. We want to share our experience with more folks in society. Up until now, we've quietly gone about our business of helping each other. Perhaps as the next year comes and the year after that, we can expand our horizons so that we reach out and give the country at large some guidance of of how we get our act back together.
I want to thank Jackson for his hard work and time and effort on that second video. You really captured Paul's spirit. And to everybody else that shared something. And I feel like I know Paul pretty well, and he would say about now, okay, that's enough of all that. Let's get back to work. Let's start supporting each other. Let's learn something new. And so with that, I'm going to bring up Dr. Stuart Gitlow, past president of the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and who has been coming to the conventions for years and really opens our eyes to so many different things about our disease, where we're going, how it's being treated. We're very grateful that you were gracious with your time today, even though we're going on a little bit later than planned. And with that, I will give you Dr. Stuart Gitlow.
Thank you. I'll tell you in a nutshell. I'm live, but let's put that up a little higher. How about that? Yes, no, there we are.
So Paul was a tough act to follow when he was with us. He's tougher now. Let me ask first, how many of you have heard me in person before? Thank you. All right, but the majority have not. All right. So this will be the same thing as usual. I'll mix it up a little bit for those of you who have been around a while. The first thing to think about is that 10 to 15% of the American public has addictive disease. And we know that with the right treatment, 80% plus can get better over the long term, can do well over the long term. So we should be able to be in a position where we have more houses when we consider the fact that only 10% of people with addictive disease are getting treatment. We should be able to multiply the number of houses we have tenfold and still have them be full and have an enormous impact on the American public. The other thing to think about is that I just said 80% of people can do well with treatment. But that's not what most doctors think. It's not what the American public thinks. Most people think that only 30%, maybe 40% can get better, because that's the number that keeps getting spread around by various domains within the recovery community. For instance, let's say that a famous Hollywood actress goes to treatment at a famous program on the waterfront somewhere. And they come out and they relapse and they go back. And they come out and you've heard this story, right? Right. This happens all the time. The American public hears this story and they say, well, yes, of course, addiction, you can't treat it, only a few people get better. Because their thought is, that's what treatment is. You go to a nice place overlooking the water, it's like a spa, really. There are horses, you know, and this is what it's supposed to be. Do any of you have horses at the house? Arizona, maybe? No, no one has horses, right? And yet, horses are an important part of some of these treatment centers. That ain't treatment, right? So when these folks come in and these facilities say, 40% is our number, the problem is that then the medical community says, well, let's study something. Let's write up something for the medical literature. Some form of treatment, a drug or a modality of treating people. And we're going to look at this
And we're going to compare, this is going to be our new cure for addictive disease. And we're going to take this and we're going to give it to all the people who come in, and then we're going to match a whole bunch of them and give them treatment and see which one is better. Except when they give them treatment, they give them the place on the water with the horses. They don't give them actual treatment that we know works in 80% of people. So when they say this either works or doesn't work, they haven't even compared it to the right thing. So that's why you see articles in the press talking about how this works for addiction, or this works for addiction, or this works for addiction, because they only had a 40% hurdle to jump over. If it works for 45%, oh, this is great. Never mind the fact that anything will work. A sugar pill will work 45% of the time if you're only looking at people for the first 3 or 4 weeks. Because you're going to come in, you're going to talk to me, I'll give you the sugar pill, and the talking to me will be something useful. The sugar pill won't. And you do it for a few weeks, and yeah, it looks better than the nice place on the water. It's no way to study addiction. And it's no way to treat 10 to 15% of the American public by making them think certain things. How many of you heard that story about drinking in moderation being good for you? What a load of crap, right? There's no way it is. It's toxic to virtually every organ in the body. How can it possibly be good for you? And it took 25 years from the time that original study came out for people to finally say, oh, yeah, we made a mistake. Yeah, it wasn't right. Right? So, you know, we have that situation. The situation we have now with cannabis is amazing. Right? We have a whole generation of people growing up thinking that cannabis is medication and therefore must be pretty good for you, and so I may as well use it because why not? It doesn't do anything bad. It's a medicine. More hooey. Right? So half the battle is the 10 to 15% of the American public with addictive disease. Half the battle is the fact the American public and the legislatures and the Congress have no idea what they're talking about with respect to what addiction is, how people with addictive disease can get better, and how people with addictive disease can be in long-term recovery for the rest of their successful and productive lives. And that's what we want to strive for, but we can't do that if we don't understand what addiction is. So, today, let's talk about what addiction is. First, let's talk about what addiction's not. Let's say we've got a 35-year-old steel worker. We'll make it a stereotypic steel worker. It's a guy. This guy comes home from work every night. On his way home from work, he stops at the bar where he has 2 or 3 beers. He's walking distance from his house. He walks home. He's not particularly intoxicated since he does this every day. He gets home to his wife. They have dinner. They sit, they watch a movie, they do whatever else they're going to do over the course of the evening. They get along fine. And he goes to work the next day. He sees his doctor for his annual checkup. Doctor says everything's fine. Liver functions are good. I'm not seeing anything wrong with you at all. This is a guy who drinks every single day. Does he have addictive disease? No. No, he doesn't have addictive disease because he has not been drinking despite his best interest. Nothing's gone wrong in his life as a result of his alcohol use. Now, it may well be that if we were to look at him at 80, we're going to find a slightly higher likelihood of his having dementia than he would have had otherwise. We're going to have a slightly higher likelihood that he's going to have heart disease or that he's going to have hepatic liver disease than we would otherwise. So he's not doing himself any good, but we wouldn't say he has addictive disease. Now, let me tell the story again. 30-year-old steelworker comes home from work each day. On his way, he stops off at the club. At the club, he does a couple of lines. Not saying what it is. But he's doing it with his friends. All his friends are doing the same thing. Could be coke, could be crushed stimulant, could be heroin, whatever. Then he goes home, has dinner with his wife, gets along perfectly well with her, life's good, goes to the doctor for his annual checkup, and everything's fine. Goes to work every day, not having any problems on the job. It's this guy who's doing a couple of lines, snorting it every day. Does he have addictive disease? No. You guys get it right. The doctors I teach, they don't. They say, oh, the second one has addictive disease. Why? Well, he's using heroin. Are you kidding? The disease is defined the same way, independent of the drug. Doesn't matter what the drug is. Right? Doctors don't get that. And the general public sure as heck doesn't get that. So when we talk about addictive disease, the first thing to think about is that the drug itself doesn't matter. And especially the legality of it doesn't matter, right? It wasn't that marijuana use was addictive disease in the US 10 years ago, but wasn't in the Netherlands, right? It either is or isn't, independent of legality of the drug. All right, the second thing to think about is, I told you that the guy who has the beers every day at the bar on his way home had 2 or 3. What if he had 5 or 6? Would that make a difference in terms of whether he had addiction if the whole rest of the story were the same? No. Correct. That's another thing you guys get, but the general public doesn't. To them, overuse, too much use, quantity and frequency of use have something to do with whether or not someone has addictive disease. But they don't, which you know, and they don't. So most of the public thinks, and I'm sure you've been here, right? You've gone in to be evaluated at some treatment center. And how often did you encounter a counselor who spent considerable time with you gathering data on when did you first use this drug? How much did you use? When did you start using it? When did you stop using it? And they're filling in this big piece of paper chart, all the data. And I'm always telling people who are new going into treating this disease, the first thing you should do is take that sheet of paper and rip it up, because it doesn't mean anything. The quantity and frequency and the drug name and what they've been using and how often doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with whether the person you're evaluating has addictive disease. They look at me, they're like, well, if it's not the quantity, how do I determine whether or not someone has addictive disease? And worse yet, how do I determine if they're getting better? Because what most doctors and clinicians use as the variable to determine whether or not an individual is improving is how much and how frequently you use. Right? Well, this patient's getting better. They're not having half a bottle a day. Now they're just having a drink or 2 a day. That's not better. Yeah, there are studies out there. If anybody wants to dig around in the literature, you could dig around and find articles that say this and such drug works. Naltrexone. Naltrexone works, not the one long-acting naltrexone for opiates, but the naltrexone review that they gave for alcohol for a long time. The reason why that works is, if you read the study, because the percent of days on which a person drinks heavily has gone down. Think about that for a moment. Let's say that you drink heavily 4 days a week, and now you drink heavily only twice a week. Did the medication work? Of course not. That doesn't work, because you might even be drinking heavily 2 days a week instead of 4 and drinking more. So it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even make sense. The numbers don't even add up, even if that were something to look at. So the percent of days on which an individual drinks heavily isn't an important variable. And yet, That's the variable on which the medical community assesses whether or not a certain treatment should be utilized for treating addictive disease. It's as if we said a diabetes drug worked if it brought the person's blood sugar down from an average of 700 to an average of 600. And normal is 100. Right? Unless there's abstinence and recovery, you're not better. You're not even starting to get better. I want abstinence as a starting point for treatment of addictive disease. So if somebody goes through detox and they get finished with detox, I say, oh, good, now we can treat your addiction. Oh, no, doc, I was in the program for 28 days. Yeah, you were getting clean, and you were getting rid of the withdrawal symptoms, and your sleep is finally barely starting to come back to normal. At some point in the next 6 months, I'll be able to really start working with you. For now, we want to make it so that you get through these next few months safely. Then we're really going to start to work. And yet, when people go to these 28-day programs, they get discharged. Just discharged. Not sent to anybody, not seeing somebody, not going on for treatment of addiction, now that they've had treatment of their intoxication and withdrawal. Because the system is broken. The system isn't set up properly. So we need to go back and figure out what we're talking about when we talk about addictive disease. All right. Addiction works very much like other chronic medical conditions. Let's talk about diabetes for a moment. Years ago, a wagon train is crossing the American prairie. And on the wagon train is an 8-year-old girl who's beginning to experience the signs of diabetes, type 1, juvenile diabetes, where she's not making enough insulin. But the parents don't know that. All they know is she seems pretty thirsty. She's drinking an awful lot of water. They're stopping a lot so she can go off in the bushes and pee. That's all they know. They don't have a doctor. They don't know anything about medicine because this is hundreds of years ago. And to them, this is a behavioral illness. That's what diabetes looks like if you don't know what's going on. Somebody drinking a lot, albeit water. So if that's all you know about a medical illness without understanding what the underlying physiology is, oftentimes they seem to be behavioral diseases. Well, we come to find out that indeed there is something going on. They figured out that the urine in these individuals experiencing these symptoms is sweet. I don't want to know how they figured that out, but they figured that out. They also figured out the blood in these individuals was sweet. And therefore, there had to be something wrong physiologically. Was it in the kidneys? Is it somewhere in the bone marrow with blood production? Where's the problem? And eventually, they figure out that the problem's in the pancreas. The pancreas is responsible for making insulin in the islet cells of the pancreas. Insulin is produced, and it allows glucose to be broken down. And when glucose is broken down correctly, you don't have diabetes. But if the insulin isn't being made and you're not able to metabolize the blood sugar, then the sugar level rises and you end up having morbidity, sickness as a result of that. So the problem's in the pancreas, right? Well, maybe. Why is it the pancreas stops making the insulin? It's because the immune system is attacking the islet cells that produce the insulin. So the problem's not in the pancreas after all, it's in the immune system. And then you start to realize, wait a second, I know some people, some identical twins, where one twin has diabetes and the other twin doesn't. How is that possible if this is a genetic disease that is established at birth and that should result in the exact same outcome each time? And yet it's only 50%. Because even in a disease like diabetes, There's a combination of genetic abnormalities and environmental cues, something that triggers the genetic abnormality, the genetic predisposition to actually take place, so that the individual ends up with diabetes. We have people, Phil and Steve Mayer, downhill skiers. They won gold and silver in downhill, I think it was Lake Placid, many years ago. One of them has diabetes. They're identical twins. They're born 5 seconds apart. One has diabetes, the other one not. They both lived the same life. They grew up in the same household. They went to the same school. They skied in the same races. They won Olympic medals side by side. What's the difference? Don't know. One of them might have had the flu one year or a strep throat or who knows what. Something happened to trigger it in one of them and not the other. All right. 50-50 in diabetes. Is 50-50 in addictive disease too? You take people who grew up in families where there's addictive disease, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of having addictive disease, but it won't happen to you absolutely. You've got siblings, some of whom have it and some of whom don't. What's the difference? What happens that makes it so that the genetics are off, and what is it in the environment that triggers it? What sets it off? Well, we can look at it by, does this show, will this show? Yes, it will. Wonderful. We can look at a normal curve. This is a normal curve, normal distribution. What is a normal distribution? It's a mathematical concept that basically means if I take a whole bunch of coins, say, and I drop them right here, most of them will be right underneath where I drop them, and they'll drop off as we go on those two tails. And that's what this is. This basically means that as you sort things, there will be a greater number of people in the middle and a scattering that will gradually decline on both sides. All right. This normal curve applies to a lot of things. If I took everybody's body temperature in the room and then graphed it, it would look like this curve. If I looked at everybody's height, most people are going to be here in the middle. I'll be at one end, some other very tall people will be at the other end, and that'll be the way that works. IQ, same thing, right? A lot of things are distributed in this mathematical fashion. One of the things that is distributed in this mathematical fashion is something called stimulus augmentation and stimulus reduction. So here's my test for you. Let's say it's a bright, sunny day outside, really one of those glorious days that I don't think they have in Seattle very often. And, you know, blue sky and the sun's bright beating down. How many of you, if you walked outside midday on that day, would absolutely walk out the door and put on your sunglasses or have them on even before you get out the door? How many of you? All right, got about a quarter of you. How many of you would not put on sunglasses? Absolutely not. We got another quarter. And how many of you don't care? Right? All right. And that's exactly the distribution we expect, right? Most of you don't care, but some of you absolutely would have sunglasses. Some of you absolutely would not. Those of you who would put on the sunglasses, you're over here. You are what are called stimulus augmenters, because the sun's the same. It should be the same for all of us, right? Except we all have a volume knob in our head. That volume knob is set to a certain level. That level, imagine it's a volume knob on a radio, that level is going to determine how loud the world is, how irritating the world is, how bright, how vivid, how annoying, how distressing, right? If you are the person who puts on the sunglasses, then you are a person for whom the world is more irritating than it is to most people. You don't like turbulence in airplanes. You don't like driving too fast on the highway. You don't like loud nightclubs. Because all of these things are sort of overwhelming and annoying. If you go to an airport and it's crowded and noisy, you're like, oh, I just want to get away. Let me find a corner and I can sit over here, right? That's the person who's a stimulus augmenter. The stimulus augmenter is a person for whom, if they can artificially turn the volume knob down, perhaps with a sedating agent of some sort, like alcohol or a Xanax, that'd be great. And if they can keep doing that and maintain that lower volume indefinitely, that would be perfect. I mean, it's too bad. The drug doesn't work like that. But if it did, that would be great. All right, that's a stimulus augmenter. Stimulus reducer, on the other hand, these are the folks who don't even own a pair of sunglasses. These are the people for whom the world is pretty boring, pretty slow, pretty dry. You want to pep things up. You like loud nightclubs. You like the movies because they have the volume turned up pretty loud in the movie theater. You like IMAX, right? The world's got to be big. You want to drive, you're driving fast. You're skiing downhill, you're going straight down the mountain. Turbulence in a plane is cool. It makes you go to sleep. That's a stimulus reducer. This person does not like alcohol. This person likes stimulants, right? Now, here's the question. For those of you who raised your hand, sunglasses, no sunglasses, did the drug of choice match? One no, but the rest yes, right? So this is the usual process in terms of, and this is a metaphor, right? This is a way of thinking to yourself, how can I identify the potential that I have addictive disease if I have never picked up an addictive drug? How could I try to tell if somebody has the genetics predisposing them to addictive disease if they're in a situation where they have never been given a drug? Wouldn't it be great if somebody came in to see me and I'm a pain specialist and I'm considering giving them some hydrocodone and I could say to them, tell me about your experience wearing sunglasses, and that answered the question as to whether or not it would be okay for me to give them the hydrocodone? Right? I can't quite do that. That's not really the way it works, although that would be better than nothing, and nothing is mostly what's being done these days. So what we're trying to show here is that there are measures and there are methods of telling whether or not somebody's brain is set up in such a way as to accept or not accept a certain drug. I know this holds true for me. I'm a stimulus reducer, for sure. Don't even have sunglasses except if I'm, out in the Arizona desert. Right? So there I have sunglasses, but otherwise not. I can't stand alcohol. Alcohol does one thing to me. It makes me nauseated. Just doesn't work. As I'm down here, turning my volume knob down is not going to do anything. So let's talk about what alcohol does and how it works, because we need to figure out the next step in order to see what we're talking about. Here's a chart where this is time 0. And this is the course of time. And we'll say that, let's see, we'll make that about 2 hours, okay? And here's a level of awareness, a level of alertness. This is your baseline. Up here is a sense of, I'm a little jittery, and here's a point where you're feeling, I can't stop moving, and here's a point where you're having a seizure. Right? And then down here, this is a point where you're mildly sedated. Here's a point where you're asleep, and there's a point where you're dead. All right? So we have the two ends, dead and grand mal seizure. When you have alcohol, or anything that is what we call cross-tolerant with alcohol, works the same as alcohol, Xanax, Valium, Librium, Klonopin, Halcyon, any of those, Sonata, Lunesta, Ambien, chloral hydrate, meprobamate, Soma, right? They all work absolutely identically. Xanax is just a really dry martini, all right? And You know, you can trade one for the other. When you have alcohol, any alcohol, wine, beer, booze, makes no difference. You get a 2-hour period of sedation. The 2-hour period of sedation has an amplitude, right, that is based on how much you drank. If you drink enough and don't throw up, you kill yourself. Right? That's what happens to the frat kids every year, right? One kid gets, overly intoxicated, gets thrown in the trunk of a car where he's supposed to spend the night, and they find him dead the next day because he didn't get the chance to throw up. But if you drink the way people tend to drink, then you're trying to get a little period of sedation. It takes about an hour for it to peak. And that's what you drink for. But that's not the longest effect that you get from the alcohol, because the human body works in a way where the brain says, wait a second, we were supposed to be here on this line. Something came in from the outside and pushed me back here, and I'm going to push back. The brain pushes back, but in a delayed manner and in a slightly slower manner. So by the time the alcohol is starting to wear off, the brain is still pushing back, and what you end up with is a second curve. Second curve is agitation, a little bit of anxiety. If you just drank enough to barely notice that period of sedation, then you won't notice the agitation at all. But if you drank enough so that you really felt it, you'll feel this agitation. Now, what most people do is they drink to maintain a level, if you know how to drink, you drink to maintain a level of sedation over an extended period of time. So you're getting ready for the party, it's a couple hours before the party, that's when you start drinking, so that you're at the right point when you get to the party. And you drink a certain amount every roughly hour so that you maintain your level of sedation. And what you're doing is this. Right? Having a bunch of drinks every hour to maintain a level of sedation. You're never really drunk. Your blood alcohol level is not even particularly high at any point. But you're maintaining your buzz over the course of the evening. Each one of those then has that rebound period of agitation. But remember, they last longer. And because they last longer, they start to add up. And so what we get is that, where this level ends up to be greater than the level of sedation that you ever got as a result. So there you are drinking over the course of the evening, New Year's Eve, say. You get home, it's 2 in the morning, you say, thank God, I don't have to get up early tomorrow morning. And yet, the next morning, there you are. Why? Because you're right here in the middle of this agitation caused by the alcohol you drank last night. What's the one thing you can do that'll make you feel better at that point? Absolutely. Because what you're doing is you're bringing that right back down. But it's going to come with another one of those curves. And that's the problem with alcohol. That's why it doesn't work. Because inevitably, you end up having to fight this. That's why Xanax and Valium and Librium don't work, right? If you look in the PDR, the Bible of medication for doctors, there's something in there for Klonopin and Valium and Librium. It says so for all of them, right? All those benzodiazepines, they all say the same thing. Has only been tested for 8 weeks. Who here has ever had a doctor tell them after 8 weeks on Klonopin, that's it, I have to stop the medication now because you're only allowed to take this for 8 weeks? Anybody? No. And yet that's what they're supposed to do. Why are they supposed to do that? Because at the 8-week point, the only thing you're treating with Klonopin are the side effects caused by the Klonopin. And that sucks if you started out up here in the first place. Because remember, you take that normal curve that I had before, flip it on its side, and now you've got that. So imagine I take somebody who's a stimulus augmenter. The world for them is a place that is uncomfortable, a place that is too agitating, too anxiety-provoking, too irritating, too annoying, too distressing. And that person comes in and says, I'd like a medication to help me feel better. Or that person says, I think I'll try beer for the first time. Or I think I'll try a drink for the first time. And what will happen is they'll do that. And they will say, I think that makes me feel like everybody else seems to feel all the time. They're right. They are exactly right. That drink made you feel just the way everybody else feels all the time. And if that's your first thought on having a drink, you're in deep trouble, right? Because what's going to happen then is that drink will wear off, and you'll go up there. And if you were uncomfortable to begin with, as you should be because you were at one end of the normal curve, now you're really going to be uncomfortable. So when we're fighting addiction, we're not fighting the way the drug feels to the average person in the population. We're treating the way the drug feels for a person in the population who is already at one end of the spectrum. And then they come in and say things to me like, oh, I don't have an addictive problem, I'm self-medicating. What you're self-medicating is called addictive disease. It's not depression, it's not anxiety, it's addiction. It happens to look like depression or anxiety because that's the emotional experience that you have that accompanies this discomfort. But the discomfort is addictive disease. But here's the weird part. Not everybody who's a stimulus augmenter has addictive disease. Almost every child of an alcoholic, though, is a stimulus augmenter, interestingly enough. But what is it that makes it, if this is the part that defines the genetic abnormality, remember I said only 50% of people with the genetic abnormality actually have the disease. So what's the trigger? What makes it so that people who fall on one end or the other end of the spectrum end up with addictive disease? What is it that makes it so that some people who are right here in the middle get addictive disease? What's different for them? What happened to them? Did they have a strep throat? Did they fall down and skin their knee once in third grade? What was it that made it so that they end up having the difficulties associated with addiction? And if you look closely at them and treat them over long years, my dad was an internist in the field of addiction for many, many years. He helped start American Society of Addiction Medicine 60-odd years ago, probably more. He saw patient after patient after patient, and after many, many years of that, he came up with a concept since borne out, which was that all of the patients that he had seemed to have had the same experience with their parents. And it was almost always the parent of the same sex that was meaningful. And the issue that they had with their parents worked something like this. I'll tell the story from a guy's point of view first. Guy's 6, 7 years old. He's going to play baseball with his friends for the first time. And his friends, are a little older than he is. They're barely willing to allow him to play baseball with them, but he goes out anyway. And they put him in right field. He can't really do anything wrong in right field. It's unlikely a ball will ever go his way in right field. He's standing out there. He's getting sunburnt. He's hungry. Needs to pee. He's already watched the airplanes flying over. Finally, he sees a shadow. Ball's coming his way. Drops near him, He's not sure what to do. Picks up the ball, it's too big for his hand. He tries to throw it, but he realizes he doesn't know where to throw it. So he sees somebody running. He throws it to the running guy. That was wrong. Everyone teases him, they make fun of him, they embarrass him. He feels ashamed. He feels a sense of having been shamed in front of his friends. They're never going to want to play ball with me again. I cost them the game. No, you didn't, but he thinks he did. And everybody thinks badly of him. He goes home, goes to his old man, tells his old man what happened. His old man puts his arm around him and says, yeah, that happened to me too when I was your age. Tell you what, let's grab some ice cream. We're going to go out back, and we are going to learn how to play baseball, how to throw a ball. You're going to learn the rules. This kind of embarrassment will never happen to you again. That's a good dad. It's not the dad any of my alcoholic patients have. My alcoholic patients have the dad who says, yeah, Tommy, you really suck at everything you do, don't you? That's the dad my patients have. Because when you have that dad, you are then taught something. What are you taught? You're taught, when I come to you, the person I'm supposed to depend upon, the person who's supposed to be there for me, and I open up and I share my emotions with you and I tell you how ashamed I feel and I tell you how badly I feel, I'm going to end up feeling worse. Right? You get taught that enough times when you're 5, 6, 7, you shut down. You don't want to share your feelings. You know that doesn't work. Right? If you're a girl, little girl, right? You're growing up in a house where you're being abused or molested, and you go to mom. You say, Mom, this is what's going on. And mom says, yeah, I don't care. Or mom says, yeah, that happened to me too. Nothing you can do about it. Or mom says, you're a liar. Right? That's the mom my patients have. And they sit there and they say, I don't want to be like her. I don't even know who I want to be like. I don't have a role model. Right? So you grow up with these parents triggering what happens. If you look at families, what you'll often notice is addiction runs in families, but it usually follows sex lines. Right? If the mom is the addict, it's the sisters in the next generation who have addictive disease. If the dad has addictive disease, it's the brothers. So it's sort of remarkable to think that that's all it takes to trigger this illness. But think about it. If I had a group of people who were diabetics, and I look at them, and I say, brand new, newly diagnosed diabetics, and I said, it's an amazing thing. I could make it so this disease would not harm you. All you need to do in order to get rid of the dietary requirements, in order to get rid of the insulin pump, in order to get rid of checking your blood sugar every few hours all day long, all you need to do is go to a group of people and stand up and say, hey, my name's Stu, I'm a diabetic, and share with them for a little bit every day and get a sponsor to talk to about it. They would all jump up, hug me, run off to the next Diabetics Anonymous meeting. They wouldn't give it a second thought. And yet I look at my patients with newly diagnosed addictive disease. I say, I can make it so this disease, this terrible disease that you have, won't harm you at all. All you need to do is work a program where you're going into a room and sharing your feelings with a group of people. They're like, whoa, stop right there. Go into a room, share my feelings with other people? Are you joking? Not on a bet. Or they say, yeah, I went to the meeting, it didn't work. Yeah, where did you go exactly? Well, the meeting was in the church. I saw it. I was across the street. Yeah, I'm like, did you go in? No. All right, I went in. Where'd you sit? In back. When did you get there? After the meeting started. When did you leave? Before it ended. That's not going to the meeting. I want you to actually go to the meeting. It means sitting up front, raising your hand, talking to people, sharing, staying afterwards, having coffee with the group, help put the chairs away. I want you to actually work the meeting. It takes a long time to get there, right? Why does it take such a long time to get there? Because of the fact that you were trained from being a little kid not to do what those meetings require you to do. That's what's so hard about it. And that's what makes it so that the folks who are up here or down here and are genetically predisposed to have addictive disease get addictive disease. You have to have a combination of the genetic abnormality and the environmental trigger. The third thing you need to have is a culture that promotes the use of illicit or licit addictive substances in order to achieve a beneficial goal, right? We live in a world in which you're supposed to drink. You're supposed to drink it at funerals, you're supposed to drink at wakes, you're supposed to drink at celebrations, at weddings, at graduations, whatever it is, you're supposed to use a drug. That's what the commercials all say. The commercials also seem to imply that you will be sexually successful by doing so. It's remarkable. So, you know, what else is going to stimulate a 15 or 16-year-old than the fact that, oh, by doing that, yep, you will. That's what it says, right? So, and then, of course, everything ties in together. So you sit there and, you know, the other thing that people don't like to talk about is how much drugs and sex have to do with one another. Right? How many doctors have spoken to you about whether, as you've entered recovery, your sexual dynamic has changed in some way? Has that been addressed? Would it be useful for it to be addressed? Right, because there's a connection between the two. And that connection is often an obstacle to getting better, but no one's willing to really talk about it because we live in a culture that doesn't really want to talk about it, unless, of course, they're advertising something like alcohol, in which case they talk all about it. And we live in a culture where the idea, the concept is that if a drug does not hurt the majority, it's acceptable. That's what we're going through right now with marijuana. Why are we moving? Let me back up. 100 years ago, we had prohibition of alcohol. And you may say, well, that was a big failure. It was the biggest public health success America had ever had. We dropped the per capita use of alcohol by more than 50%. The alcohol-related morbidity and sickness dropped by 66%, two-thirds, because of prohibition. Yes, crime was up in certain domains. Could easily get rid of that by just decriminalizing, but let's ignore that. So politically it was a failure, but from a health perspective it was an incredible success. When prohibition ended, it took a full generation for the per capita use to go back to where it had been and for the sickness related to alcohol to go back to where it had been. A whole generation, because a generation had grown up not thinking of alcohol as something typical, as something that should be done. What we're going through with marijuana right now is the same thing. We're ending prohibition, right? It's happening. And as that happens, we will see over the course of a generation that per capita use will rise and the secondary morbidity due to the drug will rise as a result. It's the same experiment. We're doing what we did with alcohol 100 years ago, except we're doing it with pot. And as we do it, you know, with cannabis, we are going to end up in the same situation. And what people typically say back to me at that point is, yeah, but marijuana is not that big a deal. And, you know, what they're thinking of, I don't know, is their dad or grandpop's, you know, marijuana back in Vietnam. And that's not what we've got right now. What we've got right now has a much higher THC content. It can be condensed into waxes and dabs and has, you know, psychedelic properties. And so 1-2% of people who use it end up with psychotic diseases long term, even if they stop using it. And so we sit there and we say to ourselves, oh, 1-2%, that's not very much, until you start to consider how many people are using it and the fact that the number of people using it as it becomes legalized is going to double. So we're actually doubling the number of people who are going to end up with these secondary morbidities due to marijuana use. Did anybody here start their drug use with marijuana? Yeah, so there's a relationship here, right, where it contributes to the whole process, and yet people don't see that. What I want us to do as a culture is to move in a direction like we did with seatbelts. Most of you will not, at some point, get thrown through the windshield of a car in an accident. We didn't set up seatbelt laws to protect the majority. Seatbelt laws are there to protect the minority who would otherwise have been injured. Why aren't we protecting the minority who would be injured by substance use? Why is it that we're allowing drugs to be out there independent of the degree to which they can cause harm? So we live in a culture that is promoting substances, that is promoting their use, that is industrializing and profiting from their use. And they're only making it so that we're going to need even more Oxford houses than we would have otherwise because of the direction things are going. So addictive disease is a 3-building block concept: a genetic abnormality, a predisposition that is then triggered by an environmental event, typically in the family, in a culture that promotes the use of substances for purposes of self-enhancement. That's what it takes to make this disease. We can treat it through any of 3 ways because there are 3 building blocks. Going in reverse order, the social issue could be addressed by changing the laws for the better rather than for the worse. Going in the right direction in terms of availability of certain drugs in certain places. The second way of approaching it would be, how do we deal with the family trigger that took place? That's Oxford House, right? That's 12-step. That's working together to be reparented, to relearn how to be part of a family, or to learn for the first time how to be part of a family. Right? And the first one, this abnormality, if I had a drug that would fix this, that'd be great. I don't. There is no such thing. The only drug that comes close, there's actually 2, and it only works for the people with opiate use disorder, and that's methadone and Suboxone. It is replacing one drug with another, but it's replacing a drug that has negative results associated with its use with a drug that does not really have negative results associated with its use if used properly. So what those drugs are meant to do, Suboxone especially, is fix this so that the cravings are gone, so that the interest in the drug use is gone, so that the rest of your life can get back together. Now, I'm sure there are going to be a wide spread of opinions here as to whether somebody who is simply taking Suboxone every day and not using heroin or any other similar opiates is in recovery. How many of you would say that a person who's coming in to see me and getting the Suboxone from me and doing absolutely nothing else, but has successfully for 10 years been doing so, and has their life back and is married and has a running car and a job and a home, how many people say that person is in recovery? All right, that's more hands than I've seen in the past. How many of you say that's not recovery at all because they're not really working the program? And we get some hands there too. All right, it's much different than maybe 5-7 years ago when I asked the question as well. So we're making some progress. I think they're in recovery. It's a different kind of recovery, to be sure, but it's one where they are no longer bound by their addiction in terms of how they're getting through their life every day. It's just a different way of approaching it. And it should be, because we've got 3 building blocks, and they're going to be a different combination of inputs that are necessary in order to treat each one of these individuals. All right, I am sure that I'm running close to out of time. Let me talk about one other thing while we're here, and that is the opiate crisis that we've got. It's not really an opiate crisis, folks. It is an addictive disease crisis. And if you look under the numbers that relate to opiate use, you'll see percolating under there a significant number of problems related to sedatives and stimulants. And if we were to wipe opiates off the face of the map, we'd still have a problem. It just wouldn't involve opiates. The way we like to think about this from an addiction medicine standpoint is we're in the middle of an addiction crisis, but it's not something that's new. It's something that's been around for, good many decades, right? What has inspired people, I'm sorry to say, to look at this opiate crisis differently from the way they looked at the last one, which was in the 1970s, is that this one has hit the higher socioeconomic and the white groups. The other one didn't. And this time, the politicians are doing something in response. Problem is that they're not going about it in the right way most of the time, although some of them certainly get it. But we have a real disconnect among various congressional and legal bodies and law enforcement because there's a lack of understanding as to what addictive disease is, and a lack of understanding as to what treatment is, and a lack of understanding over how really to get to the heart of the matter. But with your help, we can educate these individuals. And I'd love to see a greater amount of advocacy from Oxford House residents as the years pass, as we're able to grow our numbers. And certainly the numbers should grow given the percent of the population that has this disease. I wish you all well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Gitlow. We certainly appreciate you always being here and sharing the information that you share. At this time, I do want to make a quick little announcement and just remind you all that it's really important that you go to the designated smoking areas and you don't go off kilter, because there are cameras around and the hotel does see everything. So to remind you, the smoking designated areas out front in that cove or around the corner in front of the hotel. So at this time, we're going to do the World Council qualifying 3-minute speeches. So if I can have the candidates for residents come up. Those individuals are Jake Elliott, Joshua Clowers, John Weyer, Corbin Kirk, Brent Schumullinger, Jason Brown, Hiram Torres, and Nicole Kazmata. All right, so we'll start with the residents, and we're going to give you 3 minutes. Jake Elliott from Oklahoma.
How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Jake Elliott. I'm from Oklahoma. My sober date is September 28th of 2020. I have held my chapter chair position for a year. I moved into Oxford in November of 2020. I've held state comptroller, and I just want to keep growing in my recovery, help all of you grow in your recovery, and help the newcomer coming in. Thank you.
He should get an extra vote because that's a short, to-the-point speech. Next, we're going to have Joshua Clowers from Florida.
What is up, Oxford House 2022? All right, I'm sure all of you know my name is Joshua Clowers. I'm a resident from Jacksonville, Florida. I know I look around a lot whenever I come in. You know, you see a lot of people handing out merchandise and things. Well, I don't have that. And then I got a question the other day. It's like, what do we get for voting for you? Well, you get a great World Council resident, right? Like, I believe it. There's a method to the madness, right? Like, I didn't come in with no merchandise or none of that because I believe in principles before personalities any day, all day, right? And if you're voting on me because of what I'm giving away, then it's probably voting for the wrong reason, and I probably didn't need it anyway. But I didn't need none of that whenever I became chapter chair of my chapter. I didn't need none of that whenever I became vice chair of the state of Florida, and I don't really. If I need it now, then I don't know. I don't believe I need none of that. But yeah, my clean date is the day I moved into Oxford House, and that makes 1 year tomorrow. And this place saved my life. This place has saved my life, honestly. I can honestly say this place has saved my life, and I owe my life to it. I do. My daily routine is service work, and I want to continue to do that every way that I can. Thank you.
All right, we're going to have John Ware from the great state of Oregon.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Ware. On the 8th of this month, I celebrated 10 years in recovery. I've been in Oxford since November of 2012. I've served every position within my house, within my chapter, and served on a state association for a number of years. This year will be my 4th year serving all of you on the World Council as a resident member of Oregon. I'm seeking a re-election, and I think I've got a lot more to do. Thank you, guys.
All right. Next, we have Corbin Kirk from the great state of Virginia.
All right. Wow, it sure is, that's a lot of people in here. Well, hi, my name's Corbin Kirk, and yes, I am from the great state of Virginia. More than that, the eastern region, which I do believe is the best. But I am biased. My clean date is August 3rd, 2018. And I have been a member of 2 different chapters in Oxford since November of 2018. I have served as chairperson and treasurer of Chapter 11. I am the current chair of Chapter 2, and I'm also the vice chair of the State Association. So, obviously, I love to serve. That's really what keeps me clean, and, you know, like they tell me, you know, I can't keep what I have unless I give it away. So, with that being said, you know, I just want to continue to grow, and I would love to serve y'all on the World Council.
All right. Next, we have Laree Parrish from Alabama.
Hey, y'all. My name is Laree Parrish. I'm from the great state of Alabama. My sober date is September 7th, 2021. Thank you. I came to Oxford House straight out of county jail. Had no intentions on staying sober, I'll be honest. And all of you guys wrapped me up and made me feel at home and gave me a family. Sorry if I start crying, sorry. So today I have a beautiful life. I am reconnected with my daughters, have a baby on the way that I actually know who my baby daddy is. I am my Chapter 4 chair. I am HSC comptroller for the state of Alabama. I am housing services for Central Alabama. And I just want to ask you guys to vote for Laree because Oxford House saved me.
All right, next we have Brent Schmolinger from Missouri.
I'm Brent. I'm a grateful recovering addict. My sober date is 5/7/2017. I ultimately didn't choose Oxford. Oxford chose me. It was a hard-fought battle. I didn't want to move into Oxford, but ultimately it was where I ended up. And right off the bat, I got involved with Oxford. I became a chapter treasurer. I did a full term of that. And then I became the chapter chair for Chapter 9 in Kansas City, Missouri. And then I became the state chair. And I did 2 years of that. Ultimately, this has saved my life. I didn't have anything. I'd lost everything. And ultimately, Oxford gave me what I needed back in my life. So I just continue to keep giving back what it's given me. And ultimately, I hope that I can be part of the World Council. That's all I got.
Next, we have Jason Brown from the great state of Washington.
All right. 3 minutes. Boy, I'm nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. I had to take notes. I don't know how these guys are doing it. But let me start out by saying that how elated I am to be here with every one of you today. For me, gratitude is an action word. Every day, I show my gratitude by doing service work. I share my experience, strength, and hope, guided by our principles and guided by our traditions. January of 2019, Rowan Oxford House voted me into their presidential position. I learned that position, I fulfilled that position, and we had a pretty good house. 6 months after that, I was voted Chapter 32 chair. For a year and a half, I did that. At that point, I was at my first World Conference. It changed my life forever. You guys, all of you, were my spiritual awakening. I figured out at that point that I can give back to all of you to make your experience in Oxford just like mine, and mine is mind-blowing. I have everything in the world. I have a family, you guys, the state of Washington. Everybody I come into contact with is a person that I hope is doing well. If you're not, let's find out what we can do together to help that work out. As a state services rep, I get to go to every house in Spokane. There's 38 houses. They invite me to their emergency meetings. They say, come on in. We know you might have something that we could do. If I don't, I have outreach. I'll call them and say, hey, so this is what's going on over here. What can we do? Because I want each and every person in here to make it as long as possible till death do us part. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and step back.
I think they might be a little biased. Next, we have Hiram Torres from the great state of Texas.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hiram Torres. My sobriety date is August 13th of 2006. And for that, I'm truly grateful. I moved into Oxford House in November of 2007. When I moved into Oxford House in San Antonio, there was 8 houses. There was 52 houses in the state of Texas at that time. We have over 30 houses in San Antonio. We have almost 300 houses in the state of Texas. I help create what we call interchapter, in San Antonio we call it citywide. I was part of doing that. I've served as chapter chair, for multiple chapters in San Antonio, because when I get started, there was one chapter. I helped create or develop the new chapters, which now we have 6, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, I help with splitting the association. It used to be called this, the State Association. It got so big that we had to split it up into the North Region and the South Regional Associations. Help do part of that. My main thing is I love serving Oxford. I love serving Oxford. I love serving the houses. I'm always available for any houses, in Texas if they call, and I'll come. You call, I'll come. Like, I don't care what it is for. It's just, I learned very early in my recovery and very early living in Oxford that, the only way for me to give back is for me to give back. Like, I have to give what was given to me. I have to give it back. And somebody in Oxford believed in me because I was forced to move into an Oxford house by my parole officer. And I wasn't going to stay, and, well, I've been there 15 years. I quit asking her after a while if I could leave, because at first I kept asking her for the first few months, I kept asking her when I could leave, and she kept telling me when I tell you. And so after a few years, I quit asking, and I just stayed. So thank you very much.
And our last resident is Nicole Casmata from Arizona.
Hi, guys. My name is Nicole Casmata. I am from Tucson, Arizona. Sorry, I've lost my voice a little bit. I'm so excited to be here. I am my HSC co-chair in Chapter 2 in Tucson, Arizona, and I am also my state association secretary. I also work in a treatment center in a very unique residential IOP program, and the majority of which of my clients have graduated and come into Oxford House, and that is why I want to be on the World Council, is to be of the best service I can be, not only to my chapter and my state, but to everybody, and including these newcomers that I have coming in. And it's just such an exciting opportunity to be here, and no matter what, I'm gonna continue doing everything that I'm doing now, and even if I don't get elected, I thank you all for letting me be here.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate your kind words and your efforts to run for the council. Now we'll call up the alumni that are running. So Alyssa Rohn from Arizona, Eric Perkins from Washington, John Edens from Kentucky, Lavardis Williams from Texas, Will Schumacher from Virginia, Josh Huggy Huggins from Alabama, and Ann Plobe from Oregon. I feel like it's a wrestling match. They're saying, good luck, shaking hands, great game. All right, everyone know the rules?
Somewhat.
No tapping out. First, we'll hear from Alyssa Roan from Arizona.
Ooh-wee, Aunt Jemima. Whew. Chance sure said this was intimidating. I didn't believe him. But, ooh-wee, there's a lot of folks. Okay, so my name's Elisa Roan. I'm from Arizona. My clean date is 8/6/20. I just recently celebrated a little over 2 years clean. My journey started back in October. I moved into a brand new house that opened up. And what Oxford House has done for me is given me a family that I never knew I needed, right? Because like I lived on my own all my life. I didn't need nobody. Oxford House taught me how to live with integrity, how to like lean on people, be there for others, allow others to be there for myself, how to work a program, right? Because like we require that. Go to meetings, get a sponsor, work a program. I now have a sponsor. I work steps. I have sponsees. Like I'm able to give back and move with integrity and do things I don't want to do because like I'm having a bad day and I'm in my own self. But I get outside myself and help others, and that's what Oxford did for me. And I want to be a part of World Council because I've helped my houses, I've helped my chapters, I've helped my state, and I just want to give to everybody what was so freely given to myself and be there for the next person that comes behind me because Oxford's not going anywhere. We're standing strong just like Brandy's tattoo. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to stay a part of it. I want to stay connected, and Oxford's my life. I owe it everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next person is Eric Perkins from Washington State.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to Seattle. I hope you're having a great time. My name is Eric Perkins. My clean date, 5/20/01. I am proud to say I have spent my entire 21 years in recovery in some form of service in one way or another for Oxford House. I started out at the house level, moved into a chapter level. My roommate said, we're going to go to this thing. I said, I don't want to go. There'll be food. I got in the car. This started a pattern. Comes up to me a year later, I got to go to this thing, other side of the state. I ain't going. There's going to be food. I got in the car. 6 months later, I was elected to the state association. I haven't stopped coming back. 18 years, almost consistently, I have gone to my state association meeting every 2 months. That's over 100 state association meetings. These things are hard for me to say because I tried to be humble and I was taught not to brag. These are the things that I've done, and I have to accept them and share them with you. Oxford House, first of all, saved my life, just like it did everybody else's. I stuck around, I learned some things I became a part of, it then gave me a life, right? I moved out, started my life, kept staying involved with Oxford House. It continues to show me how to have a life. I have developed relationships, friendships that are beyond my wildest imaginations because of Oxford House. I feel that I can bring to the table 21 years of experience of dealing with us, mostly in a successful manner. I have learned how to delegate, I have learned how to communicate, and I have learned how to have fun. I have held a position almost consistently at the Washington State level for, super nervous, for 18 years. Most recently, two of my favorites have been the Pomeranian and the campout chair. My state, we had 85 houses, 3 outreach workers, and 10 chapters when I moved in. We now have 15 outreach workers, 346 houses, and 36 chapters. I am proud to have been part of that. I'll close with this. My state has a long tradition of having somebody on the World Council ever since I came in, and I am grateful and honored to be at a point in my life where I can run for that position and continue to carry on that honor. Thank you.
Our next person is John Edens from Kentucky.
Hey, family. So they call me John Edens, but really I go by Ben, so if you say John, I'm not going to answer. First off, the thing I want to do first and foremost is I want to thank everybody here. And second, I want to focus on thanking the great state of Kentucky, because I would not stand up here if it wasn't for them. I want to thank them for allowing me the opportunity to be of service to them. I want to thank them for giving me the opportunity to participate in my recovery. I want to thank them for trusting me and empowering me to be able to stand up here and following behind the suit that was given to me by people that came before me, right? This isn't about me, right? It's a we program, and the thing that is great is that we've been able to work together to build and to flourish together. To give you some of the background and credit of what my state has allowed for me to be able to do is I was able to recently open a new house as a core member. I was able to stabilize that house within the first 90 days. I have been the HSC for the state of Kentucky for the last year, where I have worked and focused on stability and stabilization. I have helped with being able to start and be a core founding member for Kentucky's first interchapter association. And I have been able to recently become an alumni and still be able to participate in my family. What I am hoping is those same things that I was able to do with the state of Kentucky, I am hoping that the Oxford House as a whole will allow me the opportunity to be able to help and work and focus on doing those same things for us as a whole. Because the one thing that I do know is that when I came into here, I had nothing. And today, whether I know you or have not gotten the chance to meet you, today you are my family. And I can promise you this, the same way my state will tell you. If you call me, if you need something, I don't care what time it is, I will answer the phone, I will show up. If you need an emergency meeting, I will be there. I will promise you I carry Narcan in my backpack because nobody's life is not worth saving, and I will do whatever I can to be able to not allow anyone else to not have someone be able to answer the phone when you call, because someone did it when I needed it. Thank you.
Next, we have Lavardis Williams from Texas.
I'm super nervous too, by the way, so just bear with me. All right. My name is Lavardis Williams, and I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is that I have not found it necessary to have a drug or a drink since December 19th of 2017, and for that I'm truly grateful. My journey in Oxford House started in January of 2018 at Oxford House Catawba in Dallas. One of the first experiences I had with how Oxford House operated was at a regional meeting when I was asked to represent the chapter after 2 weeks of moving in. Shocker, right? During that meeting, they had a spot open for chapter services chair, and I had no idea what that meant, but I knew I was willing to be of help. So I nominated myself. Unfortunately, I didn't get the vote. But after the meeting, I remember we all went out to eat, and a really good friend and mentor of mine, Dee Wasaki, she told me that she said to keep that drive of being of service because it will help you stay clean and save your life. From that day on, I served on every level from House to Chapter 4 Chair to Secretary and Vice Chair of the North Texas Regional Association, Dallas Fundraising Chair. I've also had the opportunity with a lot of other great men in recovery to bring a men's conference to the Texas State Retreat, which is now in its 3rd year. I moved out of Oxford a year and a half in June of 2019 and immediately joined the DFW Alumni Association, where I now serve as the chair. Being an alumni means giving back to Oxford House through mentorship, service work, and assisting House's chapter and state associations while giving residents guidance and hope. It is an honor to be running against these great service warriors in this election, and I'm extremely grateful for being considered for this position. I am asking for your vote for the World Council alumni position, which would be an honor to serve. Now that that's out the way, So I wrote a 2-minute speech because I made a rookie mistake. So I was like, okay, I have a minute left. I'm going to wing it, right? And what I want to share with you guys is that, we teach about how Oxford House is a family, right? And one of the gifts of recovery is that in my, addiction, I wasn't a parent to my kids, right? And through, the 12-step program of NA and the guidance and the experience I've had with Oxford House, as of yesterday, I am now a grandfather of a baby boy. Yeah. So, don't be a D, vote for V, but call me Pop Pop V from now on. That's what you do.
All right. Next, we'll have Will Schmucker from the great state of Virginia.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Will Schmucker. I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means to me is I haven't felt the need to use a drink or a drug since September 30th, 2018. I can sit here and I can go on about all the things that I've done for Oxford House, but I don't think that's what this is about. I think it's about what Oxford House has done for me. Oxford House gave me a life. Oxford House saved my life. Oxford House gave me a family. Oxford House taught me how to love. Oxford House taught me how to be there for people. I think this main thing is to give back to Oxford House. This is about you guys. This is about the person who hasn't found Oxford House yet, the person who is going to be sitting in those chairs 15 years from now. I think that's a big part of what the World Council is about, and I've learned that this past year, sitting and fulfilling the one-year term I had. So to be able to continue to do that would be, it would mean the most to me, to be able to give back to the people that, are going to be coming into these houses, the people that are going to be living in Oxford houses 10, 15, 20 years from now, to make sure that the things we do stay that way. So, I just ask, and please let me continue to serve. I love all you guys. I will always serve Oxford House no matter what. I can never give back enough. I can never repay what Oxford House has given me. So thanks.
All right, we'll keep it moving along. And Josh Huggy Huggins from Alabama.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. It always amazes me that I'm standing up here. Last year I did the same thing, and 4 years ago I was living in an abandoned house and dumpster diving for food. And, I fell into the first Oxford House in Alabama, the first men's house, and I became the first state chair and all that stuff. Here's the deal that all of us guys up here that are alumni that still want to serve Oxford House, it doesn't matter who wins this election, Oxford House wins because we all love Oxford House the same. What I will say different is y'all entrusted me last year with a one-year alternate term, right? Which means I wasn't able to vote. I wasn't able to hold an elected officer position. All the other alternates, they fell off. I'm the only alternate left because people kept telling me in my area, you're just an alternate. Well, I didn't know that because every time something was asked to be done, I raised my hand and I asked to let me do it. So much so that the council actually created a vice chair position just to give me somewhere to do something at because I was just wanting to constantly serve. We've done some really big things on the council this year. OHI has called us one of the most active councils in recent history. We have collected bylaws from 12 states. We're on our alumni committee. We're trying to develop some best practices to begin the first stages of maybe creating an alumni association manual. We've also created the national Facebook alumni page. So if anybody's not as alumni is not on that page, get with us so I can get y'all invited to it. It's going to connect alumni from all over the country together. So we're doing a lot of big stuff. For years the council has been trying to suggest changes to the manual, and now it looks like we are going to get a few changes done to those manuals. So that's another big thing that's being done. So what I'm asking for, my theme this year is I've got unfinished business, and I want to see what I can do with 3 more years to finish the work that we've begun. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving along, we have Ann Plobe from Oregon.
Hello. So I would like to start off with something that's really important to me, and that's with a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer for the addict still suffering, if you would all join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, I'm super nervous, but here we go. So I'm Ann. I'm from Oregon. My clean date is 12/20/17, and I lived in an Oxford house for 2 years. After I moved out of Oxford House, I was involved in alumni. I've held positions as far as all my house positions, chapter positions, state positions. I know all of that's important, but what's more important is what Oxford gave me, and that was a foundation to have a life. I didn't know how to be a woman in recovery, let alone a woman at all, a mother, a friend, a wife, and Oxford House gave me all of those things. There's never an event I go to or a place I go to that I don't see somebody or know somebody that I can trust and that I love, and it's my family. I recently had to go to the state of South Carolina on a family emergency, and all I had to do was pick up the phone, and there was somebody there and I'm from Oregon, that let me sleep at their Oxford house, so I was safe while I was there. I want to give back to you guys because it's that kind of stuff for me. Like, I didn't have a family, and you are my family. So I'm hoping to be on the World Council, and I love you guys, and thanks for listening.
And that concludes your alumni candidates for the World Council. So let's give our residents and alumni all a round of applause. So the speech is important because it is actually the qualifying marker that makes all of these candidates eligible to run. So what will happen now is you will all be able to vote if you are currently a resident, and correct me if I'm wrong, resident can vote for 3 and 1 alumni, and if you're an alumni, you can vote for 1 alumni. All right? After we finish this session, we're going to do our Directors Awards, and if Eric will come up and join us and help participate in that, you will be released and you can go out immediately and vote at the World Council table. We encourage you to get your voting done early. Votes have to be in by tomorrow at noon. 12, say that again? By noon. And then we will spend the next couple of hours counting those votes by hand. So check it clearly, circle it clearly, don't scratch out, think about who you're going to vote for, circle it once, check it once, whatever the instructions say, because last year we had a couple of scratch outs and redos. So only 1 vote, yes. So, say that again. If they're an alumni, they can vote. If they live in a house, they can also vote. So, anybody have any questions? Nope, we'll keep it moving right along. I'll hand it over to Jackson.
Hey, now wait. Nobody leave,
because we got to do some pictures, right? We got to do some pictures. But in order to get your picture taken, you have to be dismissed by me first. And I have a list on how to dismiss you. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. For every house, chapter, association that donates on a consistent basis, it's $600 for houses, and I believe $1,000 for chapters and states, correct? Central office, correct? Yes, I heard a yes, so I'm going with that. You receive a director's award, 100-year director's award. Now, there are some houses, and I've seen it in Kansas. There are houses that have dozens of awards because they donate every single year, and they take pride in it, and it's framed, and they put it on the wall. There's houses in Virginia. There's some houses that have been around for a long time that take pride in this. Now, Paul Malloy did not want to charge a charter fee. He did not want to charge dues for houses to hold an Oxford House charter. He felt that that would infringe upon the autonomy of the house. So it is up to each house to give $50 a month to Oxford House Incorporated. But that money goes to help us propagate the Oxford House concept in areas where we otherwise couldn't. So it directly goes back into us helping to open more houses, which is at our primary purpose, to help people who need a bed in Oxford House. Just think if the bed that you sleep on, or alumni that you used to sleep on, just think if it wasn't available to you. It existed because somebody somewhere put in the time and effort and somehow got a little bit of money put together to rent this house, get this house open, furnish it, and nurture it as people came in. And so it's important that we give back, that we pay it forward, that we try to help the next generation of Oxford House members that come in, so eventually we don't have to have conventions at hotels anymore. We can take over convention centers. We can have 5,000 people in one room. So, with that and the help of the central office, we're going to go through some states. And these states, when you get your awards, we're going to ask for a state chair or somebody designated, one person, to come and get the awards on behalf of their state. The rest of you from the state can exit and go down to the 4th floor foyer if you're less than 50 in number. If you're over 50, if you got more than 50 people here, you'll need to go to the 3rd floor. We have a photographer out there, and he can take a photo of you at 50 on the 4th, but he's going to have to look over the balcony of the 4th to the 3rd floor to get a picture of you more than 50. If you were here last year at the Gaylord, similar situation where we're going to have to take a picture looking down because we're just, some of you are just too big. It takes too long to take a picture. And let me also say this. I do realize that many of you would have sent a lot more from your state if there was more space available in the hotel. As you can see, there's not much. If we had everybody here, there wouldn't be that much. There'd maybe be 10 empty seats in the whole place. So next year in D.C., it's wide open. Wide open. You want to send 200 people? Send 200 people. We got room. We got plenty of room next year. So we want to thank everybody who has taken the time to raise money and send people to the World Convention this year, and especially give back. We are seeing the numbers go up. Can I get everybody's attention? Let's do this real quick. I know we've been here a while. It's been kind of a weird afternoon with the fire alarm. I think Paul Malloy was laughing at us, coming in and going out. Let's do the wave. Let's start over here, way over here. Can we stand up and get the wave going? Ready, go. Yes. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. One more time. One more time. Come on. One more. Let's go. All right. Oh, they're coming back. We're not done. All right. All right. Now, I'm going to read through this list. We're going to try to get through it as quickly as we can, but let me say this. Once you exit to take your photo, you can go and enjoy Seattle and do some of the fun stuff. You have tickets for some of the stuff around town. You can just be careful out there too, especially when it gets dark. Just be mindful of that, as we mentioned earlier. And let's be respectful, please, too. Let's honor the houses that are given back in the chapters. Let's show the respect, and let's stick it out. If you're near the end, just stick it out. Let's show respect, and let's give a good welcome and applause to those states that are donating, because it's important. This is important for the next people that come through. So we're not going with the most houses that donated. We're going with the highest percentage compared to, well, we'll pick them out through the alphabetical order. So with the first one is the great state of Virginia. Huh? We'll get it to them. 80.2% of the houses donated. So we will get your awards to you if they're not organized just yet. You can head down. How many do you have in number? Okay, you can go to 4th floor. He may have you go down to 3rd, but you can go get your photo. Thank you, Virginia. Setting the bar high year after year. Now we have a relatively young state with 67.1%, Arizona. Arizona, there you go. You're going to have to be patient. Be patient. When you exit, let Virginia get their photo, and then you can... Fourth floor. So we're going to give them just a second to get out and get their photo. I want everybody, while we're waiting on them, we are live on YouTube. There's probably about 1,000 people watching on YouTube from around the country. You want to turn around and wave to this camera? Does everybody want to wave to the live stream? You want a copy? Let me say this too. I got some filler here. I got to keep up with what we get. I got to hydrate. I want to give a big shout out, and I want us all to give a big applause to the host state of Washington. Let me just say a little bit about Washington. I'm not calling you for the photo. I'm just giving you kudos. You'll get to go get your photo in just a minute, but let me talk some good things about you first. Let me brag about Washington just for a minute. When a state hosts a world convention, we ask them to plan, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of people. It's not just OHI plan. We need help from the host state, and that means a lot of volunteers, and it's a long time to plan for a world convention. And a lot of times you have people that start off with the planning process that maybe aren't there in the end. You got to transition some of the leadership or people involved. Well, when we came and toured this hotel in 2018, it was being built. We had to come in hard hats and little booties. This room was empty. The only thing, they were putting down the floor in this room. It was an empty room. We had no idea what it was going to look like. We had concept art of what it was going to look like. But we knew it had a bunch of double rooms, and we knew it had a big ballroom, and we thought, okay, this is pretty cool. So we signed a contract, and we're like, 2020. They won the bid. Washington won the bid to have a convention in 2020. And guess what happened in 2020? Now, we're not going to mention it. We're not going to talk about 2020. We're not going to talk about it. But we all know what happened in 2020, and we couldn't get together for obvious reasons. So Washington had to wait. And we went to D.C. the next year. And the hotel allowed us to push the convention from 2020 to 2022. That's why we're busting at the seams, because when we signed the contract, it was really for numbers of 2020, and we have grown a lot. Just in those 2 years, we have grown a lot. And so thank everybody for their patience with the tight spaces in the breakouts. I know the women's conference was tight. There were people that were sitting right in front of the screen. I'm sorry, ladies, if that was one of you. The breakfast area has been tight. I know we don't have enough space for everybody to sit down and eat at a table. I apologize for that. We're doing the best we can. I hope that everybody is having a good time so far. Washington had to be very patient, but they continued to quietly raise money. They have raised and spent more money than any other state in the history of Oxford House hosting conventions. Okay, well, hold on. There's a lot of love to go around. Okay, I'm gonna continue bragging on Washington, but let's get another state out here. 60.6%. We have the great state of Louisiana. Send one person to get the awards, and the rest of you can go out to the third floor to get your photo, but be respectful of the states before you. They're probably still getting photos. All right, so let me still talk about Washington. Where are they going? Is that Louisiana? This is Louisiana. Who's this? This is Washington. Okay, let me brag on you for a minute because you're about to leave the room, so let me just keep talking about you. So I sat in on a couple of meetings for Washington and saw how organized they were with their planning and some of the things they were doing and some of the ideas that they had, and pretty much a bottomless bank account to work with. It was pretty cool to watch that they just continue to motion and spend money and check after check after check. I'm not gonna talk about their monies, but they spent a lot of money to host this World Convention, and we feel it. I gotten feedback from the golf tournament that was one of the best and nicest golf courses in Oxford House Convention history. Even though James McLean's team didn't win, I heard that it was a fun time. Is James McLean in the room? I think he said they came in third place. His team usually wins the thing. But we also have the live sessions in breakouts 2, 3, and 4 that were paid for by the state of Washington. We wouldn't be watching those if it wasn't for the state of Washington. We also have some lunches for those that don't have the means to go out and spend money at restaurants. We have a few lunches that were there today and a few tomorrow in the hospitality suite because of the state of Washington. We have snacks tonight if you want to go to the hospitality room and fellowship, maybe play some games. I don't know, maybe a little spades tournament, throw some bones. I mean, you can have some fun out there. Cards Against Humanity has been popular. Have a little bit of fun. No vaping in the room. I can't believe I got to say that. You cannot vape in the hotel, but it needs to be said. Yes, there are smoke detectors in the building, and there are a lot of security cameras as well. All right, are we ready for the next state? We have 57.5%, the host state of Washington. Send one person up to get the awards, and then you all will go to the third floor. I don't know if you'll be able to get through there. We got a traffic jam. Got it? All right. So as Washington makes their way out, we're going to continue to be patient. Thank you all very much. But we feel it's important that we recognize the states that have given back, and we want you all to have a nice photo before you go enjoy Seattle. The photographer this year is amazing. We're going to start to see some pictures come in. He's doing a quick turnaround on some as he can. When these group pictures come out, we'll throw them out on social media. Maybe share them on the Google Photos shared photo album that's out there. We'll try to get them out so that you can have them and share them as quickly as possible. How many of you are here for your very first World Convention? I can remember my very first convention in 2007 in Washington, D.C. I'd never been on a plane that long before, and it was a little scary. And then I got on the metro. I'd never been on a subway or a metro before. I had 2 suitcases, had no idea what I was doing. I looked at the map and had all these colors crisscrossing. I didn't know what color I was on. I didn't know where I was going. There was some guy in the corner of the train that I was on that I probably needed to sit on the other side of it because he was giving me an eye like I was an easy mark. So I was nervous coming to a big city, being from Oklahoma, north central Oklahoma, a little town where I got my Oxford House start and going to D.C. But what happened when I went to D.C.? It was a family reunion. I could go out to the smoking area and start up a conversation with anybody, and immediately we bonded. Immediately there was a connection made. Immediately there was identification. And that meant something to me, because for so long I had isolated everybody around me because I knew in my active addiction I was making bad decisions. I was going against the way that my family had raised me or that I knew to be right, but I couldn't help it because addiction had a hold of me. But when I found recovery and I found out that there are thousands, millions of other people that are just like me, that suffered in the same ways that I did, that went through the same struggles mentally and emotionally that I went through, and that have come through on the other side, I found my tribe. Oxford House is my tribe. It really is. When I go to AA meetings, I love being able to sit in the rooms and listen to Experience, Strength, and Hope and hear pieces of my story and read through the literature and study and learn more about how to be a better person through principles of recovery. But that's 1 hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day if I go to 2 meetings, which early on I was an overachiever. I went to a nooner and then an 8 o'clock. But when I moved into Oxford House, it was all the time. In the living room, out on the front porch, in the back porch, going to meetings together, cooking meals together, having the house meeting, doing interviews. There were so many opportunities for me to interact and get with the residents and the members, his family. I'd never had that before. And that's why I stand where I'm at today. I wanted to do everything I possibly could to help Oxford House. And I had to go to this job, and this job got in the way of me being of service of Oxford House. So I thought, how can I fix this? What's the solution to this? Well, if I start working for Oxford House, then I don't have to go to that other job. I can just do Oxford House all the time. So I'm a lifer. I know some of you out there are. Some of you out there are going to be around as members or alumni. We're just hooked. This is it. This is where we need to be. I'm going to be right in the middle of this, because if I step outside of it, I'm going to miss out on something. I don't want to miss out on something. I don't want to ever miss out on this. I want to always be right in the middle of the action. Don't put me on the edge of the herd. Put me right in the middle. The edge of the herd, that's the lions pounce on those that get caught in the edges. So keep me in the middle of it. How many of you are in the middle of what you got going on in your Oxford House region? Dead smack in the middle of it. Most of you are. I'm talking to the choir here because most of you got scholarship to come here, right? Am I right? Most of you raised money. got a scholarship from chapter, houses, associations, so you're here as a representative, as a delegate for your area back home. Because we have 27,000 beds. We don't have 27,000 people here. So it is up to you as a representative to go back and share the information that you learned. So I'm guessing, because we had limited numbers, that you probably had more people in your area that wanted to go or maybe even qualified to go than could go. And you got chosen to come. How cool is that? That you got chosen to come and represent your area in Oxford House. That's a gift. It's a gift, but it's also a responsibility. Please remember the responsibility of trying to learn as much as you can while you're here to take back. I know Seattle's going to be fun. I know it's nice to go and fellowship in the smoking area or, go get that extra cup of coffee. But when sessions are going on, let's try to learn as much as we can and attend and being attentive and taking notes and taking it back to our areas so that the new people that come in can get the fire that you're going to get while you're here. How many of you had the fires already started to light while you've been here? Like, this is pretty special. This is pretty special. And when you go back and you try to explain it, that what happened at the World Convention and how amazing it was, they may look at you a little sideways, not quite understand, not quite get it. But now that you're part of the convention tribe, you get it. You can't explain the feeling of it. You just say, let's fundraise right now, and we'll take you next year, and then you can feel it for yourself. We'll go together next year. So all of you go back and think about who you can bring with you next year, and we can double the size of this room. Because we're going to a hotel that can hold 3,000 people instead of 1,400 people. You ready? All right, next state with 52.6%, the state of Oklahoma. Need one representative. Who's the state chair? Mr. State Chair. Newly elected state chair. How many of you came on a limited budget and you probably spent more money on t-shirts and are going to have to scrape for food the rest of the time you're here? How many of you came and probably spent a little bit more money than you intended to spend, and you're probably going to go home and maybe be a week or two behind on EES? I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. You're going to be like, well, that Uber ride was really expensive. And you got the new hoodie on. That Uber ride back to the airport. There, at your house, if you live in a good house, you know what they'll say? We're going to need to see a receipt. How many of you got money from your area and you don't know how you're going to get all those shirts back in your suitcase? Because people from your area wanted you to buy them shirts. Or maybe you took a screenshot of it, took a picture of it, sent it to them, and like, oh, buy me one. They got a large? Buy me one. Buy me one. And you already came in with a full suitcase, and you're wondering, how am I going to keep this suitcase under 50 pounds going home? You're going to have to go buy another suitcase and pay for a second suitcase. I've learned over the years, some of the tricks about traveling. I would come with a full suitcase, and early on, I'd buy every T-shirt I could. And I was broke till the next payday because I was buying every shirt there was. I live in Central Texas, and I don't know how many hoodies I have in my closet. I can only wear the things like 3 months out of the year. I will say this. I've not been to every convention. I've been to a lot, and the quality of the design work in the shirts this year is the best yet. Y'all agree? There is a lot of good-looking swag out there. Some of the creativity that you guys are coming with, and y'all take the shirt selling business seriously. There's tables that got moved about 5 feet, and they thought that was going to make or break their sales. So you're okay. How many of you sold out of T-shirts? North Carolina. Stranger Things. Is that the one that sold out, Stranger Things? Yeah. Sold all out. How many of you said you sold out, but you've stashed a few back? Yeah. I have a feeling those baseball caps that I heard were sold out yesterday, that I keep seeing people walk around with hats with stickers on them, I think there's some stash somewhere. That's all right. I got the keys to unlock all the doors late at night. I can see where the hats are at. All right, the next state, I don't know what the line looks out there, but we're going to keep it moving. The next state with 51.8% is the state of Indiana. Send one person up. You want to give it to him? Now let me ask, where's DC at? DC, you want to go with Maryland? You guys are at... Where's DC? I know, but they want to get their pictures together. Maryland, DC. Where's Maryland? Maryland, DC, you guys want to do it together, right? Pictures together? As one association, is that right? Okay, I'm not calling you just yet. I'm just making sure when we get to that point, I'll call Maryland and DC together. Because I remember they get a little upset with me every time. They're like, well, we're an association. I respect that. I respect that. So tomorrow, because we're in an even year, tomorrow we have a very special event tomorrow afternoon. We get to decide where we're going to go in 2026. Where? Where? I hear Florida, and where else? What I've heard is Orlando's putting in a bid, am I right? I've also heard Denver is putting in a bid. It's going to be a tough choice. 24, yes. 26, I'm ahead of myself. 2024. Yeah, that's why we're playing in 2029. We got a contract for 2029 in DC, so my years are going to get mixed up on these things eventually. All right, the next state with 50%. Hey, that support means a lot to me. I appreciate it. 50%, Mississippi. Mississippi. Missippi. So I do want to say with the numbers too, if they sound a little off, you have to remember that it's from July to June, $50 a month or $600 a year. Some houses do a one-time payment, $600, and then they're done for the year. They earn the Director's Award. Some of them sign up for the EFT monthly $50. But if you get a house that opens in November, even if it signs up to pay from the first month, it's not going to get the $600 by the end of June. So even though that's a house, it doesn't count towards the numbers. So the percentages may seem a little low. There's a lot of math. I know it's late in the afternoon. I don't want to bore you with the math. But we try to get the information out to the houses that are close. If you're around 400 or so, we try to get it out in case you want to make that last push to donate. So just pay attention to the houses as they announce in chapter meetings who's donating to Oxford House Inc. or Oxford House World Services. The next state with 46.2% is the state of Missouri. Missouri, send a representative up. Missouri was the non-DC area that hosted the last World Convention, 2018. We had a good time there. Had Kalichi. Y'all heard of Kalichi? He came and performed, hung out with us. Unfortunately, we could not get Macklemore. Just for his equipment and everything to set up, it was way too expensive. Washington has deep pockets, but not that deep. Neither does OHI. For as deep pockets it takes to get Macklemore. The next state, we're going to keep it moving. 45.4% with almost 300 houses in the state. North Carolina. That's right. 300 today, 4,000 tomorrow. Put it on a shirt, sell it. So what's on the back of the shirts? Are those all the houses? And it was outdated the day it was printed, wasn't it? Yeah. Because a new house already opened. How many of you, when you get back, you want to go be a core member of a new house? No greater gift than to open a new house. It's the greatest gift. Watching new people come in and being able to help them, to lift them up, to teach them the Oxford House model. It's the greatest experience ever. It never gets old. I remember the first few houses I opened in Oklahoma. At that time, we only got $4,000 to start houses, and I would get used furniture because you just can't furnish it with brand new furniture for that. And I can remember years later coming back to the house and seeing that they had upgraded the furniture and got matching furniture, and that's when I knew they made it. How many of you are in houses, you still have mixed match used furniture in the living room? Let's make a goal to raise some money, set some money back, fill the house with members. If you get the ES just right and you fill the house, you should have some money left over. You can buy that nice matching living room set where even the couches recline. Yeah, you got sectional. Some of your houses, you need 2 sectionals in the living area to have the house meeting. All right, the next state with 42.9% is the state of Kentucky. Kentucky is continuing the tradition of wearing neon to the World Convention. You always know Virginia, they got tie-dye, and you always know Kentucky, they have neon. Because your future's bright. What's the back of the shirt say? Be patient. Oxford House hasn't finished with me yet. As they make their way down and we continue on in this session, I want to thank everybody for being patient. I realize these sessions can get long and you're in the chair for a long time. You know, we've been trained, if you attend 12-step recovery meetings, we've been trained that after an hour it's time to get up and move around. So when you come to an Oxford House World Convention and you see the schedule and you see that 2.5 hour general session, like, oh boy, when can I sneak out and go have a cigarette? When can I sneak out and go use the bathroom and not get caught? How many of your areas are making you get something signed to verify that you attended something? Are any of the areas doing that anymore? I want to make sure that you're not out here hanging out in Seattle and skipping out on the meetings. Although I will say, I've been told Washington has this app. How many of you are signed on for the scavenger hunt? Some of you are supposed to be posting pictures of landmarks in Seattle, and you're Googling it on a computer and taking a picture of the Google image. But wait, it gets better. You're not even cropping out the keyboard. You're not going to win the scavenger hunt if you can't learn how to at least Photoshop a little bit better. And then some of you are taking, okay, you cropped out the keyboard so it actually looks like a photo, but it's of a sunset, and then you send it at 2 p.m. Y'all going to have to get a little bit smarter. Now, I know that I'm on the app. I'm going to start running from people. The first few got a freebie, but if you got to get a picture of me or I don't know, there's something going on with me in this scavenger hunt, but I'm going to start running. Y'all going to have to catch me. You're going to have to earn the gift certificate. That's right. They're going up to Jason, thinking he's me. Coming up to me, think I'm Jason. How many of you, I'm not telling you my name. I told you my name in the beginning. If you don't know my name, ask somebody. How many of you bought raffle tickets? What do you want to win? What do you see on that board you want to win? Everything. Everything. All right, let's call the next state here. We have 40.9%, the state of New Jersey. Where's New Jersey at? Come on, New Jersey. So raffle tickets are going to continue to be sold tomorrow. I just want to remind everybody tomorrow the prizes will be announced in here. They're $1 a piece. I think they're giving a couple freebies if you spend 20. Like there's breaks if you spend a little bit more. You get a few free tickets. But after this session on Friday, it's very important, the afternoon session, that we exit this room as quickly as possible so that they can convert it to banquet style. And we're going to have a nice meal. How many of you brought a nice outfit to dress into? You ready to show off with the nice outfit? How many of you are going to be wearing very uncomfortable shoes? It's like a rite of passage. The better you dress, the more uncomfortable the shoes got to be. But we do need everybody to exit this room as soon as possible after the afternoon session tomorrow so the hotel can come and turn the room, flip the room into banquet rounds. And we'll open it up at 6:30, and we want everybody to come find a seat as quickly as possible so that we can start the festivities. We're going to eat a nice meal. We're going to have some awards and a recovery speaker, Ed Smith from the state of Oregon. And then we will give a small break so you can go have a cigarette, take your uncomfortable shoes off, grab your raffle tickets, and come back in here to do the raffle drawing because they're going to have 45 minutes to raffle off all those prizes so that we give you guys 2 hours to dance. How many of you are good dancers? How many of you are such good dancers that you do it on TikTok? Because I want to see your TikTok. You got to show me your TikTok dances. Next, with 36.5%, the state of Florida. Send a representative up and go get your photo. I joined TikTok a few months ago. I have some dances on there. I'm busting some dance moves on TikTok. It's not very good. I'm going to admit I'm not a very good dancer. But I want to learn how to dance. So if there's anybody here that knows some of the more modern hip-hop dances on TikTok, you gotta share your TikTok, what is it, username or your tag. You got to tag me. Your what? Cream of wheat? Okay, you got to hook it up. I need the dance moves. I want to do the teach me how to Dougie. Teach me how to Dougie. I got to learn it. So next year when I come to the convention and y'all get bored of listening to me talk while you're waiting to get your awards, I can just bust out some dance moves. Entertain you all. All right, Florida's making their way. The next, with 34.2%, we have Colorado. Now, y'all don't fight with each other. Come on, Colorado, where are you at? Y'all don't fight with each other. Going after that convention. Colorado. I have people texting me on live stream saying my suit is sharp. It was. I swear. Now it's my wife. All right, the next state with 33.3%, Idaho. Do we have Idaho in the house? Idaho. When did the first house open in Idaho? 5. Under a contract. A few months ago. Idaho's up and coming. Boise, 2028. What? Does Tennessee want to host a convention someday? They do have a Gaylord in Nashville. Yeah. Half of them weren't in the room. Half of them weren't in the room, remember? Okay, next on the list, 31%, Alabama. Come on, Alabama. Come on down. We need somebody to get the awards. They're running to get a picture. They're excited. Okay, and then right behind them with 23.6%, Tennessee. Way to keep the enthusiasm going. Yeah, I didn't. Who are they? I'm confused. I'm confused. Who are they? Was that Wisconsin? I was confused. No, stop. Wait. I didn't call you yet. Don't get confused. I know everybody that's. How many are just dying to go out there and vape and smoke? Like, it's time. I know. Please continue to be patient with me. It's not my fault. I'm just reading off a list. I will say this. Those of you that are still in the room, there's an easy solution. Get a higher percentage of houses to donate. That's the simple solution. All right, as Tennessee makes their way out of the room, I have no idea what's going out in the hallway. Hopefully the escalators are not being congested. Hopefully they're single file. Zach said thumbs up. I think, Zach, are you just making that up so you can get out of here? I don't know should I trust him? All right, the next state with 22.1%, and it's listed here as 299 houses. Texas. $299 houses. So we'll have 3 states with over 300 houses at next year's convention. We're going to give them a second. They have a large delegation. I know Texas was very upset with me when I broke the news of how few people they could send to the convention. And I live in Texas. They were mad. How many of you have never been to the Space Needle? You're going to go this evening. The Ferris wheel, y'all going to get on the Ferris wheel? There's the ferry. How late does the ferry run? Does the ferry run? It's to watch the sunset going across to the island. That's something cool to do too. Okay, they're making their way. Let's call the next state. 21.4%. South Carolina. There's South Carolina. It's not hard to see South Carolina. They put their flag right on the shirt. They're proud of that flag. South Carolina with 98 houses. You guys hit 100 yet? About to hit 100. About to join the 100 club. South Carolina. Next, with 21.3%, Nebraska. Wait a second, that's not, Nebraska has red shirts, don't they? Nebraska brought blue shirts. I cannot believe it. You got to. Nebraska cannot come with anything other than red shirts. Crazy. Crazy times. Did it for me. Oh. The Cornhuskers, their college team. All right, it's starting to move over there. We're going to move a little bit quicker. Next, we have Wisconsin. Do we have representatives from Wisconsin here? 20.5%. Who's from Wisconsin? There we go. Come on. Come on, Wisconsin. And then after Wisconsin, we have Delaware with 18.4%. Who's here from Delaware? Where's J-Rob? Okay. Okay, and then we have Arkansas. Did anybody come from Arkansas? I don't think we had anybody come from Arkansas this year. Nobody from Maine. Maine with 16.7%. And we have Ohio. I know somebody from Ohio's here, right? Here's Ohio. Here's Ohio. Come on up. Send up a representative, Ohio. We're glad you're here. Let's give it up for Ohio. Then after them with 14.8%, we have West Virginia. Where's West Virginia? Oh, there's West Virginia. Next to Ohio. Come on. Come on. Where's my buddy Shane? Come on. Pennsylvania. Do we have anybody from Pennsylvania? I don't know. Anybody from Pennsylvania? Hawaii. Where's Hawaii? I know we have Hawaii. Where's Joe? Nalu. Come on, Hawaii. Come get your certificates, Joe. Come on, Nalu. See, one day I might be as cool as Dwayne wearing a nice suit and then fly Nikes. You still got them Nikes on? Yeah. He's pulling it off. Okay, the next state with 9.4%. This is a state I want to challenge that really needs to be moved up the list a lot. I'm going to challenge you guys to bring it up next year. You guys are going to bring it up, right? You're going to bring it up. Oregon, come on. I think that the numbers are actually higher. They just had some pick up donations mid-fiscal year, right? There's going to be higher numbers next year. The next area, we're going to do the combined. We're going to do D.C., Maryland. 8%. D.C., Maryland. How's the line look out there? The escalators moving? New Mexico, 5.6%. That's coming up, right? I know that's coming up. That's coming up. No way. No way. No. The next state with 4%, the state of Kansas. Always a rowdy bunch. Kansas, I got to say, your delegate shirts are on point this year. On point. Huh? Give you a job? Fill out an application. We love hiring people from Kansas. They got all kinds of experience. All right. Do we have any other states represented in the room? Illinois. South Dakota. We don't have any listed houses that made a full year's donation, but you all are welcome to follow the states out to get your picture taken. But I know that that's going to change next year, right? There'll be some houses. There'll be some houses next year. I already know. And then there was one. Look at all these empty seats. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to share during this time. No, don't stand. Don't stand. Keep the applause down. Save your voice. Save your voice. Yeah, we're done, Alex. Yes, ma'am. Lost and found?